This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Jumbo, everyone. Another beautiful afternoon, and we have two lionesses. The rain is just about to hit them. Welcome to your afternoon live safari. Jumbo, everyone. Another beautiful afternoon. The rain is coming, but you know, I've got two lionesses. Remember to talk to us on hashtag WildEarth. Send in your kids question at wildearth.tv. My name is Isaac, and on camera I have Bungei. This afternoon our mission is still to continue to find Jasiri and maybe some lions. But to start with, I have found the lions over here, and by the looks of things, the one to the left looks like Bahati's mother. We haven't seen him in about 2 weeks or so. She looks like she's not suckling. I'm still remaining optimistic that he's still alive, but we haven't seen him. Nobody has confirmed any news if he's around or not, so we're still going to wait and see if he's still alive. Today the weather here in the Masai Mara is around 26 degrees Celsius. Chances of rain are very, very high. It has become the norm almost, but today we left camp very early because one side doesn't look like it will get it. See if we could beat it. That's where camp is, so we decided to come this way, and hopefully it will go above us or either turn left so we don't get it. These lionesses must have been here from this morning by the looks of things. It's a nice raised spot, and you can easily you can see far away from here, and so it is a strategic spot for them to be in. Definitely it is Bahati's mother to the left and one of the Olololo lionesses. I'm gonna stay here for a little bit longer. Let's take you to another one of my colleagues to introduce him or herself.
Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve, where it's a pretty warm afternoon, nice cool breeze blowing. Have a look what's going on here in this thicket. A group of young lions resting. My name is Damon. Behind the camera this afternoon we've got Craig, and we're very excited this afternoon to be sharing some of the parts of andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve with you. We're going to be exploring kind of around the mountains behind me, and like I said, we started this afternoon with this group of lions that we saw a little bit earlier while it was still pretty cool this morning, before the sun got too hot. They were lying out on some rocks not far from where we are now, and Craig and I came into the area, and not too much of a surprise to find that the lions were not lying on the same rocks exposed to the sun as they were earlier in the afternoon, or earlier in the morning rather. but Craig spotted some tracks. We followed the tracks and then found what looks like just a couple of young lions, a couple of lion cubs lying in the thicket here. I'm sure, though, that their mothers are not too far away. Perhaps just on the other side of that little ridge, or maybe in a different patch of shade. It's a really, really deep, impenetrable thicket there. I don't know how well you can see, but have a look at how dense it is there. Lots of sticks, lots of branches, which of course afford excellent shade, but also makes it pretty difficult for them to move around. Craig and I are going to spend a bit of time with these young lions. Looks like one of those cubs is starting to get a little bit active, so we'll see what it gets up to.
It's a hot and humid day on the western fringes of the Greater Kruger National Park, and as always the elephants are making the most of Ndlovu Dam here at our eco training camp. Just frolicking in the water. A whole herd of them has just left before the drive started to feed amongst the shade, and these few bulls are left over just enjoying it on their own, being quite rough and tumble with each other. Hi everyone, my name is Mike, behind the camera is BK, and you've joined us at Eco Training's Pride Lands Conservancy, where we are sitting at Ndlovu Dam and enjoying the Ndlovus, or the elephants. And they are really having the best time. There's one that's just lying down in the mud right now. That's so cool. So there's some playing in the water, and then there's one there who's just decided, you know what? Nothing is quite like a good mud session. It must be so soft and cool, all that splashing water. The herd of elephants that was here earlier as we were having a bit of lunch was about 30 elephants, and they made a real mess and a lot of splashing water everywhere. And so that's nice, cool mud that this elephant is enjoying. Remember, they are also susceptible to the sun, so this elephant... Oh, try again. One more time. Oh, no, still not. We're all rooting for you. Come on, you can do this. No, it wasn't ready yet. It's going to take a bit of time to relax. There's more elephants coming to the dam. It's like a steady procession. One by one, these young elephant bulls are just making their way to the dam to enjoy the mud and the water. It's incredible, actually. So, this waterhole is just an absolute focal point for so many animals, and we often have this with the students, and we have to remind them that this isn't what you can expect everywhere. This is quite a special place. So we're going to wait here and see what else comes down to the water.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Masai Mara. We have elephants grazing, and looks like they're walking super fast. They just come from a waterhole. My name is Tim, and behind camera we have Big James. So right here we have a small herd of elephants, and it looks like they're beating off the rain, walking towards the escarpment. So we have two big elephant cows. So one that has gone with the group to the left, and the one that has gone with the group to the right. So two young cows, probably the same age. They look like twins, actually, but they're not twins. Seems to be walking so fast today. I just love the sound of what they make when they're walking past the vehicle. So every day in the afternoon we see them walking away from the swamp and the marsh, heading towards the escarpment, and they split up at this very place where families from different directions will head to their direction, but all of them go to the escarpment, but different places.
it's interesting how they slow the pace and then carry on walking fast. It's because the matriarch has really communicated on how to walk and what pace to use.
Well, from elephants back to my lionesses here. This morning on my live show, I came across 3 lionesses of the same pride, Olololo, but they were very, very far. These are the closest one to the 2 males that I also saw earlier this morning. In total, I have seen about 7 of the Olololo pride. And those ones are the ones we know exist at the moment. The 2 males, Kijana and Olalashe. These 2 lionesses, the one to the left is Bahati's mother, and then the collared female and her 2 daughters. One of the daughters is very pale, we know her. And actually, I can say that I have seen all of them today, and the distance in between them is a little bit confusing. I would say these ones are still in their territory, very much, but the 3 were very, very far. Both the 3 and these 2 looks very, very well fed, so they have no problem. But Olalashe and Kijana did look very hungry, and that's why they were looking around desperately trying to, locate these lionesses. They do like this, or this is part of lions' behavior, resting as much as possible, especially after a good meal and also after being in the rain the whole night. It can be very, very chilly, so it's always nice to just sit in one spot and enjoy the sun.
Good afternoon, everyone, from a very, very warm Djuma Game Reserve here in the Sabi Sands. Look at this, it's a tiny little hippo on Mum's back. Our hippos don't swim. They often bound off the bottom of the dam. Here we are at Buffelshoek Dam. So this little one obviously can't touch the bottom, and you'll see this very often, and they'll ride on the back of Mum. That's very cute. I might even say that's the smallest hippo that I've ever seen, that's just lovely, isn't it? Little mouth. Hi everyone, it's me, Trishana, and I've got Gert on camera with me this afternoon in Djuma Game Reserve. Like I said, very, very warm, and that's why we're here at the dam. Waterholes are the places we want to be at. 33 degrees Celsius, 91 degrees Fahrenheit. Very, very warm. Everyone's trying to cool off. I was hoping to find some elephants around here, but of course we have our hippos. And that little one whose birthplace I can say is most likely Buffelshoek Dam. How cool is that? Oh. That is just too sweet. Look at the size difference. Oh no, did you fall off Mum's back? Clearly. Maybe it's going down to have a suckle. Our little ones can suckle underwater. You can close off their nostrils. Oh, and back on top it goes. Isn't this cute? Hippos, as you know, are very sensitive to the heat. And when there's little calves like this, you'll sometimes even see mums dribbling their saliva onto their babies to try and keep them nice and moist, their skin nice and moist. I have a really awesome question. You'd like to know if hippos mate in in the water or on land, they mate in the water. Quite an ordeal, quite a scene. It looks very rough, oftentimes looks a little bit violent. Looks like the male is trying to drown the female, but in fact they are mating. What hippos do most often on land is come out to feed. Everything else is something they do in the water. In fact, they give birth in the water too. Baby hippos have to be one of the cutest little animals out here. Noodle, you'd like to know if the baby can float from the moment it's born. Despite hippos being quite fat, and you know that oils float, so that contributes to their buoyancy, it is not what keeps them buoyant, and they are not actually able to float because there is not enough water in a dam like this, or depth of water to keep them afloat. So the baby can't float as soon as it's born, which is why you see it like this, hitching a ride on mum's back. But see, when the hippo gives birth, it's not giving birth in an open area like this, an open dam like this. They'll find a little area, like a little nook, where it's a little shallower, but still in the water, and that's where they give birth. So that means that the baby is not sinking straight to the bottom of the dam as soon as it's born. And then also, if it does sink to the bottom, it just kicks off the bottom and comes right back up. But mammals are good mums. Look at it, trying to get back onto mum's back. Did you see? So sweet. Oh, now we're lying across mum's back. This thing is very, very tiny. That is so cute. Hippo hide? Oof. You'd like to know if baby hippos always stand on mum's back in deep water. Well, at least they try to. As you can see, they slip off quite often. And although they can't hold their breath as long as an adult does, an adult can hold it for about 3 minutes, sometimes even up to 5 minutes. At least some books say so, but in my counting, I've only really gotten 3 minutes as best. The youngsters maybe hold their a minute. So they can still be underwater for a little while and then decide to kick off. And considering that these waters in these dams are not very, very deep, that gives them enough time. That 1 minute or so gives them enough time to reach the surface again. To give you an idea, mum is probably standing in this water, so it's no deeper than about 2 meters. In the deepest point where she's standing, it's probably only about 1.5 meters at most. So even if the baby does sink to the bottom, it's no problem to get back up and onto mum's back.
So whether or not that baby hippo could float, one thing I know for certain is these tiny Egyptian geese goslings can definitely float. And they are only about 3 days old, as far as I can tell. I think they hatched the night before, or the night that I arrived at Pride Lands. So that's amazing to see. And there's about 6 of them. I haven't been able to count all of them because they're incredibly well camouflaged. But they seem to be, they came down to the water as all the elephants started to leave, and now that a few extra bulls have arrived in the water, there's lots of waves and things, they seem to be all heading away. Now look how tiny they are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 of them. Ah, fantastic. So it'll be really, really good to, or maybe did I miscount? No, I think it is 6. It'll be really good to watch them grow over the next few months and see how they develop. Now, I know the survival rate of these chicks is not great. because, oh, did you see that one-legged little tumble? Oh, that is the cutest thing I've ever seen in my life. Look at that, so neatly just walking in a line with one adult far ahead and another adult basically leading them, and they'll be looking out for danger because everything will eat these little chicks, from any sort of small to medium-sized predators, predatory birds, snakes, lizards like monitor lizards will definitely eat them, so they're really, really at risk. So the parents will be very, very aggressive in defending them. But now they head them off to the safety of some shade, probably underneath some trees on a nice sandy slope. And they'll come back, I'm sure, a bit later once these elephants relax and stop making so many waves in the water. This morning I watched those goslings fighting the waves. It was quite interesting to watch. The mother was actually taking them very close to the swimming elephants. So here's an elephant that was in our camp the whole afternoon, and there's a whole bunch of others that are basically swimming in the dam now, doing their best whale impressions. Now these are all bulls, all of them, and they keep mounting each other. I keep seeing them jump on each other's backs, and that is quite an important thing, because remember, these are all young bulls, but at some point in life they will want to mate. They will want to dominate and mate some females, and to do that they need to be very careful, because they're so much bigger, male elephants, than the females. Well, they can be so much bigger, but they can really hurt the females in the act of mating by trying to climb onto their backs. So they practice in the water by mounting each other with the weight of the water, supporting them. It's quite important. And it's also a dominance type of display. So look at this. See how it uses its trunk to lift itself up, then its legs up there. So not actually mating, these are all males. Although mating behavior has been witnessed between males of all sorts of different species, I don't believe this is mating. This is more play and domination, and also just a little bit of practice. Very important to practice. You want to get it right. It's a very important moment in one's life if you're an elephant, and you might only get a few chances in life. Most of these elephants have swum literally an hour ago, and they're back again. Just goes to show how nutritious the grass is at this time of year. This one's just eating dirt. Hey, geophagia. Very important to get extra minerals from the mud around this waterhole that they can't otherwise get from the vegetation that they eat.
So, against all reason, these little lions have gotten up out of that deep shade that they were in, that lovely cool thicket, and they've walked out into the glaring sun. And look where they're standing now, up on the edge of this ridge, with a bit of a ravine stretching down beneath them. And they've been staring down into the bottom of that ravine quite fixedly. Now, we said we didn't know where their mothers were, and just now we heard what sounded like it was either a rock rolling down the hill that one of the lion cubs had dislodged, or it was one of the unfortunate lion cubs that lost its footing and slipped down the ridge. And we haven't had a look over, but I'm sure if it was the lion cub, I'm sure it's fine. But perhaps why they're looking down there, perhaps maybe mama's down there, and that's what they're looking at. It was quite a bizarre bit of behavior that we saw. So they were lying fast asleep, and suddenly there was an increase in the strength of the wind, and the lions, oh my word, sorry Craig, look across the valley there. There's a whole bunch of, all the lion cubs are all climbing out of the valley on the other side there on the rocks. Can you see them there? That's where they've all gone. It must have been the lion cubs sliding down the rock face. But they seem to all be okay. There's at least 4 of them accounted for. I'm sure the 5th one is en route to go and join up with the rest of its siblings. How fantastic is that though, seeing lions up on a rocky cliff face like that? It's just too cute as well, all of their little faces looking down into the valley. So I wonder what, oh look, the 4th cub is coming up the hill. Here it comes to join its siblings. There we go, there's cub number 4. Okay, so all the cubs are fine. That takes out any doubt that we may have had in our minds about that sound. It literally sounded like a rock slide. And I can only imagine it was probably the little cub that was trying hesitantly to get down the hill, and then just lost its footing and slid down. There's the fifth one. How did it get there that fast? That's unbelievable. I mean, that rock face from the bottom is probably about, 20 meters high. Vey, you're asking if lions are one of my favorite animals. Vey, they most definitely are. I can spend all day with lions, especially little cute lion cubs like this, when they are active and they're exploring. And just talking about that, Vey, see what they're doing now? They're going over the ridge line there, and they're looking like they're not super nervous, but they look like they're looking for something. See how they keep looking all over the place? And they're listening, and they're smelling, and they're scanning. So no doubt they've been a little bit unsettled by the fact that their mothers are missing. And I don't think it's anything serious. This is a pretty standard routine thing for lionesses to do, is leave their cubs when they go off hunting especially. And perhaps the lionesses left these cubs in the shade and went off in search of a meal for those little ones.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is a beautiful warm afternoon here in Tswalu Kalahari, and we found some very interesting snake tracks. After the rain from last night, they were quite active, so they were moving, and it's quite easy to see it, with them smoothing out the track on the harder soil after all the raindrops. So we are actually going to try and see where the snake. By the way, guys, my name is Moritz. Behind the camera, we've got David. So we've got the snake track coming like this. It is heading in that direction. You can see it came from this little bush over here. And so what it did was, probably after the rain last night, it was looking for field mice or something like that. So going from tree to tree to tree, maybe looking for a burrow, possibly going to have a look if he can find some ground squirrels or meerkats, or, like I said, some mice or something like that. We are going to try and follow up on these tracks, see if it's not maybe bathing in the sun somewhere or just chilling under a bush. By the looks of it, it does look to be maybe a Cape Cobra or something like that. It's difficult to sometimes say, but I'm relatively certain it's not a puff adder. So hopefully we can find the cobra somewhere around here and see if we can't get a good visual on him. It is time for them now to be looking for nests of birds and all of those things. So as soon as we pick up on anything interesting, we're going to let you know. But for the meantime, we're going to send you over to another shot.
We were leaving the dam with that little tiny hippo, and then we found this group. Some lovely African buffalo. Were giving us the stare down, but I'm definitely used to it now. Every time we see them. Can you hear that? That's a really, really large herd. So we can't see them all. The bush is getting really dense, but you can see that every spot of shade has been taken up by these individuals. So we can hear them around, but we can't see all of them. Most of them are lying down, like I said, in some shade. Do you hear that? Big exhalation. It's so hot. Yes, it is. They're quite close to the dam that we were just at, so probably a little later when it's a bit cooler, they'll go down, have a bit of a play and a drink. This is my favorite thing about going on safari, and of course it being live, is that we can just drive. Even if you don't have a real plan of, this animal had a kill or whatever, you can just drive around and you can find one of Africa's most formidable animals. and quite a few of them at that, just chilling in the shade. Very, very, very nice. So you can see that these are females. They have horns, and so do the males, but they don't have that boss. The boss is the fused horn base that creates a bony helmet-like structure on the heads of the males. There were some other males on the other side of the road, hoping some of them come out so we can compare, and you'll be able to see. I wonder if you heard those grunts in the background. It's a really wonderful thing when you sit, especially with large animals, just listen to how they move through the bush and what sounds are associated with them. Sometimes it's not always the sounds they make, as in they produce. Look at the nose, up in the air. They have a great, great sense of smell. And when you approach them, the nose up in the air, something they'll do very, very quickly, and then they kind of stare at you. So what I was saying is that there's so many sounds associated with the animal. They're not particularly sounds that they produce, but rather sounds that are associated with them. So you can hear the light movement of the vegetation as they move, roll around, sit down, get up, and also gently chew and eat. Listen. Moving through the bush. And then you also know the sound is not produced by something as big as an elephant. There's no breaking of branches. And it just becomes another little bit of our knowledge. That's why it's really, really awesome to see the really big animals in the bush, as well as those little ones. Now we're going to leave them here. We're going to head over to Torchwood and hopefully find a leopard.
Something that can be said about the bush is that it's a sensory place. Chashala's enjoying the sounds, we're enjoying also the sounds, but these elephants are enjoying the tactile sensations in the bush. They're busy pushing and shoving each other, and a moment ago they were literally just gently touching each other like they are now with their trunks. It's almost like a dance that's happening. You know, they push and they shove, and they stop and they arm wrestle and they touch and they move. It's really interesting to watch. I wish we could have a universal translator which could tell us exactly what these animals are thinking or saying, so that we really know what's going on. But it's wonderful to watch them. So there's 3 elephants here. There's a lot more that are going to come to the waters shortly. They've all been in the water an hour or 2 ago, and they've moved off to feed and are going to come back now. So it's really great to see the steady stream of animals coming to and from the water. I'm surprised I haven't seen, actually I'm not surprised, I haven't seen too many other animals coming to the waterhole. And it's because these elephants spend so much time in it that they actually defecate and urinate all over this waterhole and in the waterhole as well, which probably makes the water not particularly palatable or tasty. Animals will still drink it if they're desperate, but there's still a bit of water around after the rains that we had, so these elephants are really the only animals that are enjoying it in any major way. Here comes the rest of the gentlemen. Hi there, guys. Oh, why are you getting a fright? Oh, you stepped on a stick, that's why. Sometimes it's so funny to watch elephants. They can be the most comical animals in the whole world. So the other bulls have now all arrived, and they ran towards each other, clumped up, and they all went to the same spot to go and mud wallow now. I'm not sure why they were all running. Maybe, I know there's a few students in the camp moving around. They're about to go on a sleep out, which is a wonderful experience as well. And maybe that activity, as the elephants were walking past the camp, gave them a bit of a fright. But they seem to have calmed down now, and they are enjoying splashing this nice cool mud all over themselves. It's been a very hot day, and tomorrow is going to be even hotter, so they tell me. And so I'm sure we'll have lots of elephants at the dam as well. The buffalo herd was also here earlier today in the morning. I don't know where they've moved off to, but they also tend to come and visit the waterholes at this time of day. As the sun starts to descend from its peak and the temperature starts to dip, a lot of animals come and have their last little drinks before it gets too dark and they get worried about predators coming down to the water. These elephants don't need to worry about predators. They are very big, very powerful, and there's a lot of them. They just need to maybe worry about, killer whales, because these are whales. The Ndlovu Lake has its own set of giant mammals swimming. What a gorgeous scene.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to an extremely hot day here in the Lowveld, and we have one very hot bird. No, it's not me I'm referring to. I was referring to the magpie shrike sitting up there with its mouth open, trying to get rid of the heat. My name is Lauren. I do have Theo on camera, and different organisms out here get rid of heat in different ways. I'm not doing very well at it today. I can close my eyes though, but I think this bird is really trying its best, perched up there trying to catch any element of breeze with its mouth wide open. Now the mouth is not just wide open. It's fluttering the gular, tissue at the back of the throat, and this flutter actually allows air to be pumped in and out of the mouth. So it's just like panting, or if we were to go like that, it's doing almost the same thing, but not really using its tongue. It's using the tissues at the back of the throat. So it's allowing air to come in and air to come out, which is taking away the heat, drawing away the heat from the body. Evaporative cooling. It's exactly the same as dogs panting or cats panting, or when crocodiles lie there with their mouths open. It's exactly the same, or even when storks decide to defecate down their legs. Yes, it's all sort of comes down to the mechanism that is evaporative cooling. When there's moisture, air can be drawn away from the body through evaporation of that moisture. And that's what this magpie shrike here was doing. We've came up to Buffelshoek, a property to the north of us, and I believe there's some wild dogs around. So it's probably not going to be the easiest mission trying to find them, as, well, they'll be flat in the shade. Peter, you're saying what a cute bird. I know. I love magpie shrikes. Not the same as the magpies that you get in Europe. Those magpies are much larger and fierce looking. But this bird is gorgeous. You can see those extremely long, elegant tail feathers. And they're a common resident. We see them all year round. They're not a migrant, but we are starting to see some migrants. Cuckoos are arriving. The Wahlberg's eagle long arrived. I'm just waiting on that first chip chirr of the woodlands kingfisher. Then we'll know that we're fully into summer. So every organism has its own way of losing heat and also generating heat when it's cold. And it depends what type of animal you are. And it's also not easy for birds. So I'm not entirely sure how much shade this magpie shrike is getting, but I think it's really trying its best and opening its mouth as much as possible and flutter, flutter, flutter that throat. It's also got its tail feathers sort of almost erect, perched up like that. I wonder if it's just aerating the underside of its body, allowing the breeze to pass through, shall we say. So we are going to travel north now and do our very best to find those dogs.
The little lion cubs have gone and settled up on the edge of one of the mountains in this little ravine here. And they're now using the vantage point to scan, no doubt hoping to catch a glimpse of Mom returning. Hopefully she's been successful. But also look at how the branches and the grass around them up there are moving quite vigorously. There's quite a stiff breeze blowing. It's no doubt keeping them nice and cool. See how none of them are really panting anymore? Oh, it must be nice up there. I know Craig and I are sitting down here. We're just out of the breeze and it's absolutely baking hot down here. It must be very nice for those little lion cubs over the top there. Also quite a picturesque scene as well. Perched up on a rock. It's for quite an attractive, I suppose stereotypical, almost Disney, if you will, kind of scene. So they're all facing in different directions. Hammond, you're asking how big this pride of lions are. Hammond, it currently consists of 4 adult lionesses and 2 sub-adult lionesses, and then these 5 cubs. But Hammond, we've noticed that in the past few months that the lionesses that are the mothers of these 5 cubs. These 5 youngsters belong to 2 different lionesses, so I think the split is 3 cubs with 1 lioness and 2 with the other. And they've been keeping separate from the rest of the pride, and behaving in quite a hostile manner towards their pride mates if they do try to rejoin them. And we think that the reason for that is that because this particular pride of lions, their territory where they live, and the predominant prey species that they have here being warthogs and Ngala, both pretty small animals that won't be able to fill all of those mouths if the whole pride was together. So it seems like these lionesses are purposely keeping the youngsters or keeping the other members of the pride away from their youngsters so that there isn't more competition for food. That's why we haven't seen the whole pride together. Also, the 2 adult lionesses, the 2 other adult lionesses are both pregnant at the moment. Well, at least one is pregnant. The other, we think, has just given birth. We saw her a few days ago, with where she looked like she had suckle marks, and the time before that we saw her, she looked really ready to give birth. And in the most recent time, the skin kind of under her belly was hanging quite loosely, so it looked as if she'd just given birth. So hopefully in a couple months' time we'll have even more little lion cubs in this pride of lions, and won't that be just super special?
Welcome back to the Mara, where we have come across a very small elephant family. Very peaceful. We can see how they're walking through the savannah. The matriarch is doing the real role of leading them as usual. You can see how she's flapping her ears to cool off. But it's a nice weather for them to graze because it's not that hot. You find that in the hot times of the day they'll all gather somewhere, be it under a tree or out in the open, and then shield the cars for shade. But it's a nice place to just carry on with the grazing because it's really cool. This morning we had over 100 elephants across the savannah, and they all went that direction where these families come from. So it seems like they've already split up, and each and every family is going back to their respective places where they gather for the night to eat and also to rest. They keep on stopping to rest because of the calves. It's a long way to the river and to the mound. So I'm sure those young calves might be tired, so they keep on slowing the pace for them and then carry on. And that's the role of the matriarch, to decide when to stop, when to feed, and when to go and drink. Because if the matriarch are not present, these families will all be having a difficult time to move on with their life. By looking at the tusk of these elephants, you can tell that they're closely related by how the tusk formation of being. You find that in some other families, they have crooked tusks. You find that there's some that have no tusk at all, but close relatives actually have tusk formation that can really tell you that they come from which family and which. We have experts who've researched on elephants and can tell you, but just looking at what family they belong to, such an interesting thing to see. You can see how their tusks are white because they've been cleaned by the rain. As they carry on grazing, they can eat grass, and sometimes they can peel on the barks of trees and they can eat leaves. So depending on the environment that they're in, the matriarchs can decide on what to eat because of nutrients in their body, especially during the dry season when there might be no grass. So the matriarch will take them to a very nice area where it's good, full of forage and water.
The bull elephants have moved out of the water, or most of them anyway, and they're now dust bathing on the sandbank over there, or the dam wall. Just what we see them often doing. The sand there is dry all the time, and with all the animals like buffaloes that come over the wall there at the lowest point, or one of the lower points, it seems to have loosened the dirt, and so they always go there to dust bathe, which is really spectacular to watch, especially in the late afternoon sun as it illuminates that sand and dust as it flies across the open valley of the dam. The dark bodies of the elephants wrapped and wreathed in this white dust. It's really, really beautiful. Of course, they do this because now they've covered themselves in mud and they want to cake that layer on there, which helps against parasites from biting them, because the mud is not very thick. It's very fine mud. And then they'll go and rub against a tree or a bush or a stone or log, whatever it is, which will help to dislodge any of the little parasites, and also dead skin and all sorts of things that elephants might feel uncomfortable, or that might feel uncomfortable. Oh, and there's another elephant just down in the mud there who's decided, I'm not yet ready. I'm not yet ready to dust bathe. I must continue mudding. This is a different elephant now. It's not the same one that was mudding itself earlier. This one is much better at getting up, as you see. Only took one little spin. Oh, but maybe I'm not ready yet. Is it going to get up? So they always struggle to get up out of the mud. It must be difficult, you know. They sink so deep into this very sticky mud, and they can slip over and slide all over the place. It's incredible. It's incredible. We're so privileged to be able to watch this on a daily basis. I'm glad you're all enjoying it so much. I mean, it's really, really spectacular. And look at that elephant just really writhing its trunk all over itself. I wonder if it's really just trying to get mud everywhere, into every little gap and fold in the skin. He's gotten up now. Maybe he's done with that. He wants to maybe follow the rest of the bulls. Oh, he's shaking his head. I think the geese are not so far away. I think He's shaking his head there. Maybe he's got something in his ear. I'm not sure. They often do shake their heads like that because it's very intimidating when you're... Or now he's scratching in his ear. Do you see that? You can really imagine if you had something in your ear, you would scratch just like that. So I think maybe he's just trying to dislodge something. But they often do shake their heads like that to intimidate something. Because you imagine, I mean, when you open their ears and it's kind of 2 meter, ear span, it shakes that head and it's power. It's really quite an aggressive sight. And some of the elephant bulls in the background starting to, as you can see, the top left of the screen, just feed on the vegetation and the shadows there, trying to stay cool. This is one of the larger elephants, this one, so that's why it's taking its time. It's not rushing. It doesn't have to speed around and follow all the rest. It can make its own way. Of course, there's still one ellie whale. It's just doing his thing. You can just about see his belly floating there in the water.
We're here on Torchwood now, which is just east of Djuma, and we're on what's called First Rock. As you can see, it's quite rocky. We have these wonderful giraffe that are mooching about all over, having a bit of a snack. There's a few water puddles as well. Oh, there we go. So careful, because it's such a vulnerable position. Now that neck is longer than those front limbs. Sometimes that neck is in excess of 2 meters. So that's why they have this awkward stance. Sometimes they have to be very, very splayed, or they'll bend those front legs like they just did then. What a pretty sight. I think I might just be quiet for a while. Let you listen to the sounds and take in this really, really natural scene. Just beautiful. In fact, it's so natural and authentic. You probably heard the flies buzzing by too, bothering us, picked them up from the buffaloes and haven't left us. Really, truly beautiful scene. So glad to have shared it with you.
Welcome back to the Mara. Elephants are slowly grazing while walking, maybe back to their home range area. As well as say, elephants are not territorial. However, each family or clan has a specific home range, and sometimes they might overlap to was evident this morning because we saw about 100 plus elephants around this area. So all the families that came around here split up, meaning that their territories or home ranges overlap. So they can walk vast distances, and that's the reason why they keep on stopping, because of the calves, because they get tired easily, and so the road. Rosalind, how long do elephants live out in the wild? I would say about 56 to 58. That is the age that elephants can live at this time and day, because we've seen that there's lots of destruction, home ranges, habitat loss, human-wildlife conflict, and that has reduced the lifespan of these gentle giants. Now that our November-December rains are on, so these elephants will be dependent on grass to graze, but during the dry season you find that they'll be eating a variety of trees and shrubs, because that will also add up nutrients in their diet. However, they also sometimes prefer some plants to others. So the plants that are always preferred by these elephants will be acacia, grass. We have reeds that are always in the swamps. That's the reason why they always go to the swamp to eat the fresh grass that is in the swamps. Each and every day we see these elephants walking toward those marsh area and then coming down into the open. Like right now you can see they're eating on the kappa bush while others are eating on the grass. The cattle egrets are so much enjoying, and we find that there's a close association of the cattle egrets and these gentle giants. It's always nice watching elephants. Let's just wait and see what these elephants will be doing in the next couple of minutes.
Welcome back to andBeyond, Phinda. Very exciting news. When you were last with us, remember how those lion cubs were looking over the top of that little ridge they were on? And just as we had hoped, the two lionesses have come back. They've obviously been out hunting, been out searching for food. Unfortunately for the cubs and for the lionesses, it appears that they haven't been successful. The lionesses have come back and they've lain down up on this ridge amongst the grass with the wind blowing over their faces. And the cubs are just so excited to see their mothers. It's absolutely adorable. Watching them go up to greet their mothers, head rubbing and groaning and making these yowling sounds. And now it appears that they've got a bit of energy to burn. So let's just be patient. Oh, look, there's a little stalk happening there. So just on the other side of this ridge, there's a serious game of rough and tumble that's been going on. The cubs have been kind of running up to the very top of the hill and then pouncing on each other and then rolling together down the hill to the bottom. And they've done it about 3 or 4 times now, so they're obviously enjoying it. Incredible how tough these little cubs are, because tough to see now from here, but covered by all of that green grass. There's a lot of rocks and rubble. Well, not so much rubble, but rocks and loose stones. that these cubs have been falling onto, and not a single yelp of pain or anything. It's all just fun and games for them. I see the two lionesses up on the top now, and it looks like one of the cubs is now going to come around the bottom here. Let's see if it maybe comes towards us. JP, you're asking if lion cubs use their claws during play fights. JP, typically speaking, they don't. Of course, they'll know. There you go, there's a little cub coming up from the grass. Maybe you're going to go join the lionesses up at the top there. JP, so no, normally when they play, they'll keep their claws sheathed, knowing full well, of course, that a claw can be a very deadly or a very dangerous weapon, a very painful weapon to use on a sibling. And typically these bouts of play fighting, although they can sometimes get quite vigorous where the cubs start to growl at each other, they very seldom escalate to the point where they try and hurt each other. Even though it looks like they are trying to do that, they bite each other, and sometimes it looks like they're biting down quite hard with their jaws. Really, you can see their jaw muscles working, but you very seldom hear the other cub actually yelp in pain. So they're normally pretty gentle, and the rules of play, or I suppose the unwritten, unofficial rules of lion play amongst cubs dictate that claws should be sheathed and not used during play. That being said, though, when it comes to competing for food around a carcass, these same cubs that will play with each other so seemingly lovingly, where they're just trying to enjoy each other's company and have fun and practice their hunting skills and their fighting skills and developing their muscles, put them around a carcass where they've got to compete for their next mouthful of food, and then it's a completely different situation where claws are out, teeth are out, one cub isn't scared to... I've watched lion cubs really get stuck into each other, where one grabbed a hold of his brother's neck and started to bite down very hard and clawing his brother's head, and it got very, 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 very... Well, it seemed very serious, at least from our point of view. It lasted probably about 25 seconds. Was the worst one that I've seen. And shortly afterwards they separated. It was actually so bad that one of the lionesses actually stood up and came and stood over the cubs and started to roar. I don't know if that was if that was intended to try and stop them doing what they were doing, or if it was just coincidental. But once it continued for longer than it normally does, the lioness got up and very quickly tried to put herself between the two cubs. But it's such a beautiful scene. I think that Craig and I are going to take in this sighting for just a little bit longer, just to see what these cubs get up to.
Alrighty guys, so just an update on that snake track. We followed and found the snake. It was a boomslang, but unfortunately it was in a burrow when we found it already. So we just saw the head, and as soon as it saw us, it ducked into the burrow. So it was relatively far away from the road, so we couldn't go off-road to go and, film that for you guys, or show you guys that. However, look at what we found. So this is the cheetah mother with 2 cubs, and they are looking hungry. So for them to be so active at this time, having their heads up and looking around, scanning all the corners, they are looking to potentially find something or see something that they can approach and possibly charge at. So hopefully there will be some springbok moving into the area soon or something like that. They are keeping their eye on a roan antelope, which is way in the distance. We can't see it at the moment. But yeah, have a look at how that female cub is now busy moving, possibly just to a bit of a thicker patch of shade. She doesn't do a lot of the helping with as far as the hunting is concerned. Yeah, look at how she's going to scratch a little spot for her, and then she's going to lie down. What is hilarious though is there's some ground squirrels just over here behind us. We're going to go to them now. That is very upset about the fact that these cheetahs are lying not too far away from their burrows. You can just see them all standing like little sentries. not happy about life at the moment. Not that the cheetahs will do anything, but they don't know that. So they need to be a little bit more careful. Earlier there was a third one as well. I think he actually ducked into the burrow already. You can see how that tail is also wagging around in the wind. Wind quite strong, which is great for the cheetahs, because then they can use that cover of the wind to plan their approach if they do or should see something that interests them. But yeah, we're gonna stay with these cheetahs for a little bit and see if there's not something that's gonna, develop from here. However, at the moment, I don't see anything apart from the ground squirrels and then the roan antelope. The roan antelope, guys, not small enough for the cheetahs, especially for a female to go for. So we're gonna stick with them for a little bit, see if there's something that comes through. If there is, we'll let you know, okay?
Yes, cheetah to giraffe. Yes, these are two very regal, very gorgeous males, just walking out here in the open towards some trees. These are very old males, and when I say old, it's about 15, 17, because they live between 80, so they live between 20 and 25. Or say they might live more in captivity. Yeah, that guy there is definitely browsing, picking up some nice fresh shoots from different types of trees. I would say they're having a very good time, giraffes. With all the rain, we have plenty of shoots. Then that's what they normally feed on, so they're having a very, very good time. Yeah, has to fill up his mouth and then continue on. Yeah, I would say that's a full height. I would give him a good 18 feet. They get to around 19. And he's a fully grown guy, that one. Can weigh up to around 1,700 kilos. Salma, how long is a giraffe neck? Okay, take it this way. Each vertebra is around 20 to 24 centimeters. Multiply by 7. That's around 140. Say 150 centimeters. And then add a little bit, maybe another 30 centimeters. So I would give it and then divide by 3. So we're talking about 170. We're talking about 3 to 4 meters. Yeah, about 3 to 4 meters, the total neck. So it's a very long neck, very, very long. It might look like it's short from the distance like that, but it's a very, very long neck. Each vertebra is 24 centimeters of a fully grown giraffe. And then, I added a little bit to the top and below because there's an atlas in between the last vertebra that allows them to twist their head upwards, making it easy for a better reach. And if they cannot reach with that twisting of the head, then they have to extend their prehensile lip, and if not the lips, then they pull out the prehensile tongues to reach for higher niches. Okay, from giraffe to butler eagle. It looks cold. I call it the master of the sky because this bird of prey, unlike many, can soar for hours in the air with a very short tail. That's one way of identifying it. But those bright big colors are one way of identifying it, and the bright legs, that's one other way of identifying it. And yeah, just about to take off. Are you gonna take off for us? There we go. All right. I'm going to take you to another live location as I continue on.
Now, our search in Bufosuk has not been very fruitful until now. Look what we have. A black-backed jackal. Way off in the distance, just sitting in, well, one of the only patches of shades available. Now, this is quite unusual. In areas like Tswalu and the Masai Mara, you see jackals everywhere. But for the sort of Lowville area, or especially the Sabi Sands, there are jackal around. We just don't really see them. And I think it's because of the high density of all the other predators that we have. Now, jackals are part of the Canidae family, along with the African wild dog and the Ethiopian wolf. There's 34 extant species today, and the black-backed jackal is one of them. Now, this will be a jolly good season for the jackals as well, because they do hunt impala lambs. It's the season to be jolly. There's lambs everywhere. What a lovely find. And of course the black-backed jackal, you can't see this right now, it looks like it's wearing a saddle. Looks like it's got a saddle on its back ready for someone to jump on board and ride. They're said to be monogamous as well, which is quite rare for mammals. We talk about monogamy in birds, although there's different types of monogamy. But for your sort of predator, carnivore species, monogamy is quite rare. But jackals are said to be monogamous. They pair for life, so it's not just a breeding season. It's not a social occasion or a social gathering. They pair for life. And they share duties. So because they are carnivores, and they're not an apex predator by any means, but they've got to fit into the sort of habitat and have their own ecological niche, their own way of slotting in, it means that the male and female can share the duties. So they can both defend their territories, they're territorial. And the males tend to deal with the male intruders, and the females tend to deal with the female intruders. And it's really sad. If one of the pair is killed, they tend to lose their territory. Glenn B, you're asking the size. They're very, very small. Now, they're said to be about 1 meter long, so that's 3 feet, and about half a meter at shoulder height, which is 1.5 feet. And they weigh very little. They can weigh anywhere between 7 to 10 kilograms. It's about 22 pounds, I think, if I'm doing my calculations correct today, if my brain has not melted in the sun. So they're very small, they're light on their feet, they've got a bouncy trot, and they run fast because they have to be able to escape predators. They're risky. They normally sort of try and steal from the lions, the leopards, the cheetahs, even hyenas, actually. So they normally wait until the predator's full, that bulging belly, and the predator's so full, it's gorged itself, it's exhausted, it's panting, it's probably lying in the shade, and that's when the jackal thinks, this predator, be it a lion, be it a leopard, is not going to get up and chase me because they're too full. So now is my time. And they will run in and steal pieces of food, as I'm sure you've witnessed on many occasions in other locations. What a fantastic sighting. One member of the Canidae family, another member to go.
Alrighty guys, so as you can see, This female is constantly scanning around. She's definitely looking to hunt. And, you know, the interesting thing is this particular spot, not more than 2 weeks ago, I saw her chasing and killing an adult female impala. Quite interesting. It was just at the foothill of the mountain at that point, and quite rocky. Personally, I never thought that a cheetah would go into such rocky areas to try and hunt, but she is now constantly scanning the foothill of the mountain. So I do think she's looking to see if that particular group of impalas aren't, somewhere here in the thicket, just hiding from the heat at the moment. So very possible that is her initial strategy now. However, I took the binoculars now and had a look when it came to the just on the foothill, and I couldn't see anything. But then again, that morning that she did make that kill, I also didn't see anything until she started the chase. So they might be tucked in behind the thick stuff here, just behind the shade, or in the shade, and she's just waiting to see if she doesn't see any movement coming around. However, I do hope that if she starts hunting, she rather heads more into the open area so that we can get a good view of her when it comes to the stalking and all of those things. She's an incredible hunter, guys, this female. That morning, she exhibited the utmost patience. She was standing literally in the same position, not moving a foot, for almost an hour and a half before she started with the chase. So very, very patient hunter, which makes her a very successful hunter. It doesn't look like she's eaten, well, her and the cubs have eaten in, let's say, 2 days. However, that's not uncommon for cheetahs. We know they killed this springbok not too far away from here 2 days ago. Finished that in one afternoon, and then so they would have taken the day to be lazy yesterday, and now again today looking to get something to eat. But yeah, I think for the time being, there's not going to be much more happening than it is right now, just because it is still warm, so that even the antelope aren't moving yet. So we're going to have to exhibit the same patience as she did the other day, to see if there is potentially some action in store for us a little later on. Luckily, we've got some cloud cover moving in, so the shade is helping to cool it down a little bit. Nice northerly wind that's bringing in the cloud cover, so it's not as hot as when we started the drive. It's amazing how a little bit of shade, a little bit of a breeze can make the world's difference. You can see she's still panting relatively heavily, so quite warm for her still. However, but just look at how beautiful those clouds are. Hopefully it'll bring in some rain a little later on. We would always be thankful for that, but we'll have to see. As far as the cheetah cubs are concerned, they are just being lazy at the moment, not doing much. The male, however, he's also scanning the area, so hopefully one of them will spot something soon. And then we're going to come back to show you. But for the meantime, we're going to send you somewhere else.
Well, from cats to birds, and here I have a few of them. I have we call the sparrowing goose, the one to the left, closer to me, that one there. It's very, very huge, can weigh up to 10 kilos, very big goose, very busy, enjoying what they love, grass. They feed on algae, and also plenty of insects out here, but also plenty of grass. With them is the great-crested crane, and they're also enjoying seeds from different grasses that are in plenty this time of the year. Most of their diet consists of that: grass, insects, little reptiles sometimes, and they spend about 20 hours to 22 hours, on the ground, just enjoying a lot of food from the ground. There's 2 more over there. I would say they're immature, those ones. It's really, really nice to see even the spine goose here. It's very big and wasn't very common a few years back. And so it's really, really nice to see all of them together. Farthest left over there, we have the sacred ibis. I don't know if you see it, okay? Over there, quite a long way, sacred ibis. There we go. That is another bird with a long beak. This one is slightly different. Others feed on seeds or insects, mainly feeds on small reptiles and insects. And so it's a very busy probing for little insects and worms on the ground that it can find, but it's very nice to see them.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to andBeyond in Ngala. We have found a beautiful little breeding herd of elephants that look a little bit muddy. Maybe they've been down at the river. My name is Tessa. I'm going to be your guide today here at andBeyond in Ngala. On the camera, we have Sebastian. And we are really excited that we've got some really small calves in this little breeding herd. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to drive through here and try and see if we can get around them. All right, so we're just going around to where the road is. I think they're going to cross, actually. And they look like they've had a really nice relaxing afternoon, full of mud, even dust. When we found them, one of them was dust bathing in the road. Oh, here they come on our right towards the road. So I've always loved being in the presence of elephants. I think that they are absolutely incredible animals. So they're actually trying to find some shade, it looks like. Sonia, that's a fantastic question. Elephants, depending whether they're male or female, will eat a lot of food. So if it's a male, you're looking at almost 200 or 300 kilograms of food in a day, and that'll be things like roots, fruits, leaves, grasses, even sand, or even sometimes chewing on bones to try and get some extra minerals in. But if you're looking at a female or a younger calf, it would be quite a bit less. But it is quite important for them to keep eating for majority of the day. So that's what they're doing at the moment. They're moving through thickets, looking for shade, but looking for food at the same time. So we're going to try and go around one more time. They seem to be heading straight for the road, which is very exciting. Right, hold on, everybody. So it's one of my favorite things about an elephant herd is exactly how far they can travel at a time. All right, we've got them crossing the road. So it actually looks like they're coming into a clearing. Got it. Alright, there we go. Got them off to the left. They actually look like they're moving into a clearing. It always just amazes me how you can't ever hear them moving. If you listen carefully, you can't even hear their footsteps. Right, so I think what we're going to do, we're going to try and stick with this herd of elephants for a little bit longer and just see where they go. Maybe they'll find some water.
Decided to stay with the jackal a little bit longer since we really rarely see them here. It's such a nice sighting. Although it's a long-distance visual, it's still a lovely, lovely sighting. There should be another one around. You normally do find the male and the female in the same area. They just don't necessarily need to be side by side. Now, there's an interesting theory. Because they're smaller carnivores, they cannot compete with the bigger ones. And they are territorial. So in order to leave sort of territorial markers, as all territorial species do, and they've got to, if you're territorial, you've got to announce it. You've got to let everyone know this is your territory. And jackals normally leave their scat in elevated sites, so up on rocks or up a little bit higher on the vegetation, and it's quite bizarre. And there's a theory that the reason they do this is because it is a fundamental sort of component of being territorial for the jackals. So the fact that they leave it at elevated sites, they're trying to convince any intruders that they're bigger than they actually are, because size does not work in their favor. They are very small, but light on their feet and fast, so there's always a trade-off. But the sort of theory goes that, well, if they do this, it convinces intruders that they're much bigger than they really are because their scat is higher up. And that's thought to be the reason they do that. And sometimes they'll even leave their scat on top of other carnivores' scat. So on top of lion or leopard or hyena, they will then, well, double dose, I guess. And again, is to confuse it, to mix it in with other scat. So people will maybe think that the territory, but not people, other animals will think that the territory belongs to a lion, possibly, and not a small, short jackal. But they have a really broad diet, from insects, rodents, antelopes, lambs, birds, fruit, and scavengers. They do eat carrion. Yes, beach squirrel is normal for them to be alone. As I mentioned, they do have a sort of monogamous pairing. And I wouldn't be surprised if the other one, I can't tell if this is male or female from here, I'm afraid, if the other one of the opposite sex is really, really not that far away. But during the day and temperatures like this, they're just seeking shade. And they do live in extended family groups. So they do hunt solitary. Very, very similar to the Ethiopian wolf, but the opposite of the African wild dog. They also regurgitate for the pups, which is exactly what we see the dogs do. The adults hunt, swallow the food, because they don't want anyone else to come along and steal it. And then they carry it in the safety of their stomach, which really doesn't sound so pleasant. And then when they go back to the pups, they will regurgitate. They'll also regurgitate for the lactating mother. There's a lovely social structure there. They just don't need to spend all their time together like the dogs do. I didn't catch that name, but I'm really not sure how much meat a jackal eats during the day. I really don't. Oh, there we go. We were just talking about that activity. And it's not in an elevated site. You can see they're very fox-like. But yes, I'm not sure. It's obviously not going to be the same sort of weight of meat as a leopard or a lion would require, or even a dog, because they're smaller. But they can survive on just eating insects alone, especially termites, supplementing with fruit, supplementing with a little dose of carrion. So their diet's very broad. And I think in summer they will definitely feast on a lot more than they would in winter, where there's slim pickings. But for most predators, especially in winter, it's a life of feast and famine. So jackals are very opportunistic, and they will really try to take what they can. Oh, Okay, we really are going to leave this jackal now and hopefully find the dogs.
Welcome back to andBeyond Phinda. Craig and I unfortunately had to leave those lions. They went down into a valley where we just couldn't follow them. And we started to make our way in the direction of an open clearing where this morning we saw a mother cheetah and her 2 youngsters. And along the way, we just spotted this giraffe that was standing by herself out in the open. Well, at first we thought she was by herself. On closer inspection, though, have a look between her legs. Can you see that orangey color there? Just in the gap between her front and back legs. She's got a tiny, tiny, tiny little calf there with her. Can you guys see that? The smallest little giraffe calf. In fact, it's so small that I just managed to get a view of it now through my binoculars, and it looks like its umbilical cord is still very much attached to the underside of its belly. And it's dried out a little bit, but it's still pretty long and hanging there from its tummy. It's obviously a sign of just how young this giraffe is and just how recently it was born. Probably no more than, at the most, maybe 2 weeks old. Its head just coming up to its mother's rear end, but already look at how adventurous it is. Glenn, you're asking how many teats a giraffe has. Glenn, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's 2, but I'm going to get my mammal book out just to double check for you because I don't want to give you the wrong information. Of course, for a giraffe, she's not going to have most of the time more than one offspring at a time. Most of the time, there have been rare cases of twins, so it's not like she'd need lots of teats to suckle her little one. And definitely at this age, this little one is going to be very dependent on mom for milk. Sorry, my apologies. 4 teats, 2 pairs. 2 pairs, so just like a cow, like an udder. And that's quite typical of most of the ruminating animals. Different, of course, with elephants. They just have 1 pair. Look at how that little giraffe calf is off exploring by itself. And it's now... Sure, it must be about 40 meters or so away from its mother. Look at how it's looking at us. His ears are almost too big for its body. And see where it's standing now? Just next to that little tree. And if it were to just stand still and face towards us. You guys have got the luxury of having the camera to zoom in for you, but for me, looking with my naked eye, it's probably about 70 meters or so away from where we're parked. And if we were driving past and weren't looking very carefully, it would be very easy to go past that giraffe. And so at this young age, it'll have mom as its defense mechanism. Mom will be able to detect danger coming pretty early. But if it needs to, and it has to, try and avoid danger, just freezing like that. Standing in a thicket will be a good way for it to avoid detection, as long as it remains still and it's got some good cover. Let's see now, starting to walk. Oh, never mind. I was going to start heading back towards mom, but that's not what it's doing. It's looking even further away. There's a bit of a hillside to the left of the screen where the giraffe is looking. And I wonder if it hasn't maybe heard something interesting or smelled something, or maybe even seen something that it's curious about, that it wants to go and investigate. And just looking at the surroundings, where this little giraffe calf is, it's relatively open. Not too many thick bushes. And so its mother, no doubt, has already given this area a very good scan. And she's not even lifting her head to see what her calf is doing. She's got her head buried in a tree, busy feeding. So obviously confident that she's analysed the situation and scanned the area well enough to feel safe, and to allow her calf to go wandering around like this. Now it looks like it's starting to make its way back to mom, quite hurriedly as well, walking quite fast. Maybe enough adventure for one day. Haji, you're asking if giraffe are inquisitive. Haji, they most definitely are. Very, very inquisitive. And to give you an idea, so I mentioned that we were going to go look for that female cheetah and her 2 cubs. And often when we go and look for predators, Haji, giraffes can be a big help to us. Because of how high their necks are up above the ground, they have very good eyesight, they're able to spot, often able to see things before other animals do, before we are able to. And very often with a predator, they'll go and investigate, they'll go and look at it and stare at it to see what it's doing and what it's up to. Even something that they're not sure of, if maybe they see there's a strange movement in the bushes or a strange smell, they'll often go and investigate, see what it's doing. A dead giraffe is often cause for investigation. And even humans, if you're out walking in the bush and you sit down maybe to look at something on the ground and there's a giraffe nearby and you suddenly crouch down, a giraffe will often approach towards you to come and see what you're doing. So very inquisitive animals, and because of that inquisitiveness, an animal that can be a big help to us as we go in search of this mother cheetah.
From the giraffes to the lions, who seems like they have a good spot where they spent the entire day sleeping, but one of them was right where we are and probably moved to where the brother is. This place is warm enough. It's a little bit raised. The croton bushes are here, so no flies that can bother these lions. Male lions can sleep longer than the lionesses, probably about 2 or 3 hours more. So lionesses can sleep about 12 hours in a day and males can sleep about 16. During a morning drive today, these lions were watching zebras and tortoises. It looked like they wanted to go after them, but since it's a rocky place where those tortoises and zebras were, it's in an open place where it would have at least been difficult for them to actually get one down. Sometimes these male lions cover long distances because of territorial patrol and also to find food to eat. Sometimes hunting can be difficult for male lions because of their mane. That is the reason why sometimes you find lionesses hunting and the males will come to join. But sometimes you find that because when they were growing up, when their mothers introduced them to hunting from probably the age of 9 to 10 months or probably a year, and got too independent at about 2 years, they have that instinct and ability to hunt as well. So when it comes to stalking and isolating prey, they are also experienced. We find that in a pride, this will come in handy when bringing down big prey like buffalo or giraffe. They look fit, they look healthy, so I'm sure they've been hunting out on their own. I'm going to stick a little longer with these 2 boys to see what they'll be up to if they're waking up anytime soon, as I take you over to another live location.
Yes, I have elephants now, and there is one that seems to have a sugar rush or some sort of rush. I don't know what it is. It is that guy to the right. He's teenager, and he has given me a few warnings, and now he's really trying to bully some other young bulls. He's portraying all sorts of behaviors: dominancy, aggressiveness, excitement, and look at that, you know, he's still portraying that. He's got too much energy. Sometimes you find one in a big herd like this that behaves like this, and he is one of them today. A good size, I would give him maybe between 10 and 12 years, but enough and big enough to be immune to very many things like predators. So see, right now he has gone down, he's digging the ground. You will notice some soil on his tusks when he rises up. That means, he's very angry. Yeah, there's a bit of soil. Didn't stick very much on him. Every now and then he also is just flipping himself and lying on bushes. A typical behavior of show off and bullying at that age. Can be lots and lots of fun, but you have to be very careful. Sometimes they end up, hitting a vehicle if you're too close. And he's big enough, he's a good 2 tons. See, everybody's trying to get away from him. Yeah, because they don't know what he really wants. He's a bully, this one. Yeah. Okay, he's gonna come back. Yeah, those bushes, they might look like they're just bushes, but it's a very thick bush. But for him, those tusks plus the skin protect him from anything. They're very thick. That is just like a cloth for him. The advantage of being an elephant. You can walk through bushes without worrying. The skin is around 2 to 2.5 centimeters, depending on the area. And so you can easily walk through any kind of bush. For sure, right now he can hear me. Cannot see me, but can hear me and smell me. But he's amongst very many elephants, and that's why I think he's excited. There's been, food boom. Look again, he's going to bully another one. I really bully this one. So I think he's eaten so much. He's just excited. There's so many of his size over here. Those two are his size, almost the same age. But you can tell they're being friendly to one another. But, not that guy, not anymore. They're also sizing themselves up, one another up. Yeah, these kind of fights help strengthen and also sharpen fighting skills. They are needed because in elephant life, fighting is a skill you need to have. To fight for dominance, for mating rights, you need to be very good. And at this age is a perfect time to sharpen them. Also, it helps reduce conflicts in the years to come, so it is easy to identify one another and say, okay, I think that is Bosco, and I'll say I'll avoid him because he bit me about 25 years ago. And it's actually very good and works really well. You can tell over there they have formed a small herd of males, but it seems like everybody knows this guy. Every time he gets close, he's ready for a fight, and some of them will get away, but not this one. Oh, that's a very friendly greeting. I wish you could see that, but normally they wrap their trunks around one another. Look at that. Yeah, he seems to be friendly to that guy there. Yeah, it is amazing how they're able to do that without spearing one another or skewering one another with those tusks. Is he gonna get bullied to his friend? No. Well, this looks like a lot of fun here, and I'm really enjoying this, so I'm gonna stick here for a little bit. Let's take you to another live location.
Another quite unusual sighting for the sands. Hippos out the water in this extraordinary heat. Now, I actually came to this dam because I want to show it to you all. This is Kayamanzi Dam up in Buffelshoek, and it's absolutely stunning. Look at the size of it. Yeah. Far bigger than Chitwa Dam, which is sort of the biggest one that we used to have in the area that we traversed. Now our traverse is expanded, and this dam is just absolutely stunning. So when we really don't find animals sometimes, or mainly your predators, water is just plentiful, and full summer hasn't even hit. The heavy rains that normally come with summer have not arrived. And look at the hippos. Grazing during the day, going against everything we normally say about them. We normally say they're primarily nocturnal. They'll avoid the heat by staying in the water. They'll come out the water at sunset, which is normal behavior. But maybe these hippos are hungry hippos. I used to play that game as a child. Before iPads and computer games, I played Hungry Hippos. I know hippos are out the water a lot in Namara, but in this environment, they normally really stay in the water until sunset, so this is magnificent. But they don't stray too far, you see that. The vegetation's lush now. The grass is growing. The trees that lost their leaves are regaining their trees. Flowers are blossoming. So there's lots of nutrition just all around the dam now. They don't have to venture too far from water in order to get some delicious snack. And they sustain their massive body weight by only really consuming 1.5% of their body weight. Their energy requirements are slightly different from other mammals, especially mammals that size. There's something rather entertaining about hippos on land. They're not the most elegant of creatures on land, I must say. They also can run, they can charge, absolutely, but they're not able to jump. So if they were really in trouble and there's an obstacle in their path, a hippo would not be able to jump over that obstacle, be it a log or some sort of block. Wouldn't be able to jump. Another reason they really don't stray too far from land, especially a youngster like we have on the left. Lions would absolutely snack on a youngster. And you can see just like a white rhino, they've got that really low hanging head. Their head is humongous, but it hangs very, very low, as do their jaws. And that is, of course, for all the grazing that they do. So you can immediately tell, even from a distance, that a hippo is a grazer. I think we're going to sit here a little bit longer at this dam and enjoy the sounds of the bush.
Well, I've stayed here with my elephants, and the bully guy has started trouble with one of his cousins. He's the one to the left. No, actually, he's the one to the right. Yes. And looks like he's been squared. And now he's behaving quite interestingly for me. Is he gonna go back for his cousin? Yeah, this is typical, and this is how big bulls fight. The sound sometimes is very deafening. Sometimes that's how they break their tusks. If you come across a big bull with at broken tusk. This is how they break them. The impact is so enormous that, just the tusk just breaks off. Is it over now? I think the rush has dropped a little bit. Sting tried to intimidate his cousin. I hope you're enjoying the sounds of the plovers. This is not very serious, but can get very serious. Yeah, definitely he's got one. He got one on the side, so that might ease his sugar rush. Looks like the cousin is tougher, or maybe he's been in a fight before. Those are spine plovers or lapwings. Look at how he's moving his legs. Oops, he went into a ditch. Now he gotta get it. It might seem like just pushing, but there is a lot of power there. There is a lot of strength and force used. Yeah, you have to gauge, you have to be technical on how you wrestle your opponent here. So they are really practicing. Nice to see them do this. It's not always very common, but the temperature really allows them to do that. It's quite cool. I would say also with the onset of rains has given them a good upper hand to life. That's going to be, things are going to be very good in the near future. So they're just strengthening their muscles and checking one another. They are not the only one that are doing that. Those are readbacks, getting away from everybody, all the commotion. Everybody has picked up an odd opponent. Sometimes they will stop for a few seconds or minutes. You'd think they're forgotten, and then they'll start again. I have seen one fight like this with big bulls. It was fatal at the end, and it wasn't very good. It lasted about 3 hours. The bashing of the tusks was so loud, and eventually one tusker put a tusk through his opponent's forehead and really pushed it deep until the other guy dropped. So this is definitely part of sharpening those fighting skills. This looks like lots of fun, but we have lots of good things for you. So let's take you to another location to see what they have, but I'll stay here.
Alrighty guys, so as you can see, these cheetahs are actually, you can't see the cheetahs at the moment, but they are walking right along the foothill of the mountain. So we actually went a little bit forward to try and get to a gap where we can see when they come through, but the blackthorns are growing quite thick here. So they'll absolutely continue moving from right to left in a northerly direction with the wind blowing in their faces. But it does seem like they're looking to find something hiding in this thick stuff. Possibly impala, maybe a scrub hare or something like that, or is also possible. With it being the rocky areas, there can be some rock rabbits around as well. However, I do feel like they're going to be ducked into a little hiding spot at the moment. I can actually just see the cheetah coming through over here now. So as you can see, it's not typical environment for a cheetah. I mean, very rocky. This is something that you'd expect more from a leopard. However, this female, she's been exhibiting rather interesting behavior when it comes to the mountains, using it almost to her advantage. You can't think that a cheetah would be hunting in this type of terrain, but she makes it works. So yeah, it's always interesting to see when the animals, break the rules, so as to speak, and do something completely different than what we are used to seeing from them. So very interesting to see her doing this. Hopefully she'll locate on something now, soon, and then start stalking. It would be great.
Welcome back to the Mara, where our lions are still sleeping. You can see the one to the right is actually turned upside down to cool his stomach. And I'm sure not far from now, these lions will move from this place because it's getting cooler a little bit. Seems like he's enjoying the breeze. Sometimes it makes me wonder how many lions we've actually passed without seeing, because from where these lions are, we could not have seen them if it was not for one of them waking up and raising its head, thanks to those zebras and topis. They blend in so well, you can't really tell if they're lions or not. And this is what they really depend on to get on to prey. Because when they blend in with the cover, it becomes easy for them to close the gap, to get closer and be able to isolate, to get prey. The rufous-necked black is calling. I'm wondering if it's a melody or a lullaby to these lions. Holistic, what time do lions wake up? Lions wake up in the cooler time of the day. Let's say just not far from waking up, probably 20 or 30 minutes, but sometimes they can even take longer. You find that after a very good meal, lions can sleep even longer than expected. These two might wake up in an hour, 30 minutes, depending. But at the cooler times of the day, that is when they'll be waking up, and they take time to sleep during the hot times of the day.
Obs, I'm also at Ngala Dam looking for the Madash. I'll come and scratch around and help you. Sorry about that, everyone. We're at Ngala Dam. And this is where the mad dashers, i.e. the dogs, should be. So we're actually just taking a moment to sort of be quiet. There's a nice vulture up in that tree, Theo. I think it's a whiteback. But I am being blinded by that lovely ball of gas in the sky. Just here. This one. The dead tree. From its body outline, it definitely looks like a whiteback. Probably here for the dogs. I think they killed this morning. I'm not sure what they killed. So sometimes you've just got to stop, listen, smell. But Aubrey thinks the elephants have chased the dogs away, which is rather unfortunate. Now, Buffelshoek is a much bigger property than Djuma, and there's a lot more water holes, and sometimes it's just beneficial to drive round and round the water holes. You never know what you're going to see. But sadly, we're not seeing anything. Sometimes you can hear the dogs. And just for some context, Djuma's 1,200 hectares. Torchwood, where Tswalu is right now, is also 1,200 hectares. And Buffelshoek is 2,800 hectares, to give you some context and where we're driving. Sadly, I don't think we're going to be in luck with the dogs today. But I'm still going to try, and if we don't get lucky, then I will bumble back towards Djuma.
So our lions are still sleeping. Seems like not waking up anytime soon. But I'm not leaving here until I see them walking. You can see the very big mane there, which come in very helpful for these lions because it helps them during the fights, because it helps cushion the blows from an opponent. Oh, it seems like he's scratching his head there. He's really enjoying his sleep, that one. Because of the mane, these lions look bigger. And I'm sure if they come across other lions, a big yawn there, if they come across other lions, they will look intimidating, and that's the purpose of this mane. Lions will always form a coalition. So one day, these lions were chased out from their pride area and they became nomads. And before they got to their pride, they had to walk through difficulties, scavenging, being chased out by other pride males who owned up the territory they walked through. And before these lions got to this position, Patricia Not quite sure, but I think these are the ones we always see at the Egyptian geese area. So this might be the Egyptian geese male, but not quite sure yet. Two lions like this who form a coalition are very much stronger in position in a pride area, which is very helpful because of defending themselves and also for food purposes. I'm still going to sit with these lions here as I take you over to another live location.
So we did a bit of a gander around the reserve, and we've come back towards Ndlovu Dam because it's quite quiet. Everywhere else it's very hot and there's not much water. There's not really many animals. But here the giraffes are slowly feeding. There's a bunch of giraffes here. You can see at least two of them and a bunch of zebra as well. Just feeding on the vegetation that's not so far from the eco-training camp and Ndlovu Dam. They've probably come to drink at some point, usually in the very, very hottest part of the day. Giraffes will drink, although at least the early hot part of the day. And there's another one in the distance there. It looks like a young male, perhaps. Can't really see, but it looks like there's a bit of fur on the top, but it looks relatively bare in the middle there. No, BK, what do you reckon? Male, female? It looks like a male. Yeah, it's very strong-looking ossicones or horns. Very smooth. A young male, but strong. Will be dominating this area soon enough. In fact, these two zebras that are here, I think it's a male and a female, because BK and I, as we were leaving Ndlovu Dam earlier, we bumped into these two, and the male was trying to mount the female. In fact, was mounting the female. She didn't look like she was enjoying it too much, though. She kept bucking and kicking out with her legs, so he's not quite convinced her just yet that he is the right one to be the male or the father of her foals. Because, you know, it's a harem system, so one male will dominate many females when it comes to zebra. And so she hasn't decided just yet. This one's having a bit of a scratch. Look at that. Amazing the camouflage. I mean, look at how well amongst these trees and bushes those zebra's stripes just break up the outline. Imagine if you were a leopard or a lion and you see more or less in black and white, or at least shades of color, not full color, how well this would be camouflaged, especially if they stood very still. I think it would be perfect camouflage. So, yeah, good scratch there. I thought that the zebra was limping, actually, and I thought maybe it was the male that had maybe taken a kick. But it's actually just scratching. Gosh, if I was a zebra, I'd also scratch. It's so difficult. Zebras are strong animals, covered in muscle. So they're not the most flexible of animals, so they can't really groom themselves on their bellies and scratch with their legs as easily as something like an impala could. So they really have to use props. And I know the visual is not the greatest. We can't really get closer to these zebras. But they're really using everything they can find to scratch themselves and make sure that they are as free from parasites as possible.
Okay guys, so we just actually had a very cool sighting. The cheetahs literally walked through the lodge, behind the rooms, side, and now they are, while mom and son is chilling underneath that tree. You can see her still scanning around. There's a waterhole in front of the lodge, and I think she's just having a look to see if there's not something that they can hunt in front there. It doesn't seem like there is something. We did have a roan antelope moving also towards the north away from the waterhole a while back. However, that, like we mentioned earlier, is a little big for her to go for. So hopefully they'll continue going north a little bit more and then locate on a herd of springbok or something like that, so that we are able to see all the action happening. It is incredible to see when they're hungry how early in the afternoon they do start moving. I mean, it's still relatively warm, but it doesn't faze them too much at the moment because they have empty bellies, so they want to get to where they can hunt. You can see with them having moved quite a bit now, they are taking a little bit of time just to relax in the shade. However, I don't think it's going to last very long before she starts moving again. Or they might use this spot just to lay in and wait to see if there's not something coming into the waterhole, and then, you know, devise a plan from there. If they can have the animals coming from the north, you know, heading south towards the water, they'll have the wind in their favor, as well as a bit of cover where they're lying at the moment. So hopefully soon we might get something going. And you can see it constantly scanning. The male cub also scanning back towards us to try and see if he can see something on the foothill of the mountain, or just, you know, halfway up the rock face or so. But we tried to have a look also, and we're not seeing anything over there in the mountain now. And I think the best bet is going to be to continue going north to see if they can't find something that's maybe lying underneath a tree or so, because personally I feel like if there is something out there at the moment close to where we are, they are going to be static, waiting for the sun to drop a little bit lower or behind the clouds before they start their afternoon grazing. So yeah, hopefully soon they'll start moving. However, they are cheetahs and they will do whatever they want whenever they want to, so we might have them laying here for the next hour. If there's something that happens, guys, we'll immediately come back here, but for the meantime we're going to send you off somewhere else, okay?
Well, something different and very beautiful work of nature. Here I have, you know, some termites, and they are very busy reconstructing one of the chimneys that maybe was destroyed by rain. If you look closely, these are termites, and the specific kind we find here in the Mara is called Microtomes dictatus. It builds this kind of chimney that is almost half a foot, and it is said that it is as deep inside under where the queen chamber is. What is happening here? This could have been destroyed by rain. You can tell there's a bit that has dropped all this, and mind you, this is not waste. This is not mud. That is waste from the inside. So all you see here is waste from inside, and this could be wood, it could be grass that inhabitants have collected it.
There's something we don't see too often here at Pride Lands. I mean, we see kudu a lot, but to see them out in the open like this and incredibly relaxed, something we don't see too often. So it's really, really nice to spend time with these antelope. This is my favorite antelope, is the kudu. It's just so majestic. This is a female. She's got no horns, but she does have the beautiful stripes and long fur on the neck and that huge ears, which he uses to listen out for danger. Remember, kudus don't usually live in open areas like that. Usually, a kudu would be amongst the thickets, where it can eat the vegetation and use its grey coloured coat, like brown-grey with the stripes, to camouflage itself perfectly. So to see it out in the open is quite unusual. And you can see those ears constantly scanning back and forth. Remember, in the thickets, they wouldn't be able to use their eyesight that well to spot danger, so they will really be relying on their sense of hearing to listen to something approaching them. There's a bunch of kudus here. This is a female, and there's a young male just behind over there, also approaching slowly the waterhole, and another female who looks like an older female behind, but we'll look at her in a moment. See the young male here, he's just got his first twist in his horns. And I'm not sure if I can age male kudus very easily, but I'd say this one is probably less than 2 years old. I feel like they grow fairly fast and they get that first twist in their first year of life, I think. So this one, I don't think it's much past 2 years old, but I could be wrong. I may stand to be corrected. It's just so nice to see them, so majestic. And watch this kudu. Sorry, BK, can you look at that female as she walks? I'm sure the others will do it as well, but there's something that's very interesting about the way these antelope move. So look at its feet. Where the front foot steps, the back foot will step almost exactly on that spot. Do you see that? That is called direct registering, and it's something antelope that live in thickets do. Bushbuck also, and Ngala. So here comes the male and the other female. They'll be doing it as well. Now, this is a method that these kudus use in order to be as quiet as possible when they are moving through the thickets. They're not occurring in the open, and they're not in huge herds. So they can see where the front foot steps, and they need to make sure the back foot steps on exactly that same spot. Oh, you see that one just tripped over a stick there. So this one is not paying attention. It's right now looking at the water and is very excited to drink. It's another thing that I don't see very often. They are fairly water-dependent animals, but this will probably be the first time I see a kudu drinking at Ndlovu Dam, which is fantastic. That's a good question, Angie. So a kudu is much larger than a Ngala for a start. So a female kudu and a female Ngala, the kudu is about twice the size, maybe 3 times the size. And the color, as you can see on this kudu that's just moving on the dam wall, is very grey-brown in color, whereas a Ngala is a very reddish color. So those are the two most distinguishing features, in my opinion. The size, massive size, taller than a person, whereas a Ngala is shorter than a person, much shorter. And then the color, the grayish color. So it's really great. I'm going to try and move us forward slightly. I think we've got fairly good signal in this area. So I'd like to move us forward because there's some impala coming down to the water and there's the kudus drinking. It's really, really beautiful. It's such a wonderful bushveld scene that we're having right now. So let me just move us forward just a touch. Just have a look here. Not much, just that'll do, just over there. So that we can see these kudus drinking because it's so nice to see them. We don't often get to see these majestic antelope drinking. Oh, there's a big break. Then there's I think the goose is just behind them as well, just feeding on some of the insects that might be in the water there with the goslings. So look at that, that's so cute. They always seem to come towards wherever there's animals. I wonder when the animals come to the water's edge, if they maybe disturb some insects, which then the geese can snap up. It's interesting. Or the frogs maybe, because we saw them eating a frog not so long ago. That's just gorgeous. There's still six youngsters, I hope so. I mean, that'll be a bit sad if they've lost one already. Here come the other ones. The kudus didn't spend very long drinking. They seem to be milling about quite a lot. I wonder if they're a bit nervous. It is very quiet. Most of our students have now headed out on their sleep out, so there's no one really in the camp. There's a few people moving around, but that's not what's got them suspicious. I wonder if there's a smell in the air. Perhaps. They don't look alarmed. They certainly don't look settled either. They're not just going to drink. They're very nervous. Look how it stretches its neck out and approaches the water very slowly. Now, this is because in most waters in Africa, you can be sure that there might be a crocodile, especially in such a big waterhole like this. So they're very aware of that, and they have to be very, very gentle. They come to the water's edge to make sure they don't get snapped up.
Well, sorry, gremlins got to our comps, but we're back to this interesting piece of nature, a masterpiece of nature. I was explaining how this is not waste. This is all the waste of food that they have eaten from the inside. And with termites, one member of the colony will eat the food, and once it's not properly utilized, he'll get rid of it, but immediately another member will eat it. And once it's properly utilized, it is taken somewhere down there to a chamber where they store it, and when conditions are perfect, they'll bring it up and use it as a building material. They normally mix it with their sticky saliva, and this is, you can tell here, this is very fresh and fragile. If I push, you can see it's moving. All these are worker termites. They usually are large, but they don't have the big head and pincers for defending and fighting stridulating ants, which are their biggest enemies. This chimney acts as air conditioning for the termite mound. During the day, you can tell that is east. By the direction of how high this is, the wind will hit here, goes down, and then it is circulated on the inside. Individuals of a small mound like this can be equivalent to a population of one of our biggest cities. There could be 2 million of them inside here. And how this started, it was just by 2 individuals called elids. Elids are members of the termite that are born, and actually they are productive, and they get as big as my small finger, and they are the only producing members of the termite family. The rest of these are sterile. They don't produce. All they do is work for the colony. The temperatures inside here must be perfectly controlled, because if it goes a certain temperature, then individuals will die, and if they go below a certain temperature, same thing will happen. So it is controlled between 26 and around 33 degrees Celsius, and it has to be constantly monitored by these workers here. You can tell they are building this side to be much higher than this side for a reason. Right now, it's quite cool, and so it is the best time for them to come up. They're very delicate. Wind, sun, even rain will kill them. But right now, it's cool. There is none of that, and that's why they're so active. Hence the reason you find aardwolves, aardvarks, pangolins very active this time of day, because everybody is out and about, building, and that's why they come to eat them. I'll leave them. There is a lot we can talk about this beautiful masterpiece of nature, and I'll leave them to do their business. Maybe there's an aardvark or aardwolf coming.
Termites are always fascinating, and they're by far the best in terms of genera and how big the termite mounds can be, and how many in a termite mound there can be in number. So back here we have our sunset, beautiful colors there. I'm always fascinated by the sunset. Each and every evening we see a different setting, a different color, and how the sun goes down deep into the horizon. As the sun is setting, we can hear lots of birds chirping. We can hear frogs. I just heard a hyena just howling over in the distance. So it's paving way for the nocturnal creatures. Hyenas, lion, white-tailed mongoose, bush babies, and lots more.
A rare scene for Djuma. Everybody, we have a cheetah. A female cheetah. She's been hunting, or she's been sort of looking around to hunt. And I know you see cheetah a lot in Phinda and Tswalu, but for Djuma, we're up in Buffelshoek. This is a very, very rare occasion. It's really exciting for both. It's Theo's first cheetah. Give me a high five, Theo. Boom. Hope you heard that. Now excuse the vehicles. There's not much we can do about the vehicles, I'm afraid. But this is so exciting. Okay. Can you see her, Theo? I think we should just move. Stay with us. Ah, there we go. You've got better eyes than I have. Am I allowed to squeal? It's very rare for us to get cheetah here. Why? Especially Djuma. Out of all the properties, Djuma's actually the least favoured by cheetah. They need open clearance, and Djuma just doesn't offer that. I mean, quarantine does. Let's see if we can catch up. Quarantine is an open clearance, but it's very small. It's not big enough. Cheetahs need to accelerate. They need to accelerate fast and run. And I think I mentioned this morning, they can't run where it's densely packed and they're going to knock into a tree and pass out. So they need open areas, and Buffelshoek and Torchwood and the Kruger, they offer that. Djuma sadly does not. Okay, we're just going to get into... Ah, there she is there, Theo. Don't want to block anyone else's view. So this is not the most open area. The grass is still very long, but you can see it's not so densely packed. There's no riverine system. There's no sort of tamboiti thickets. That's what you don't want. And I got asked this morning the difference between a cheetah and a leopard, and you can see she's so thin, she's slender. We see a lot of leopards out here, and they're bulky, they're muscular. And we've been talking about Canidae family. Well, I have been. And believe it or not, cheetahs are cats. They're part of the Felidae family, but they're not in the Panthera genus. They have their sort of own genus, whereas them and them alone, and it's the Asinoinks. So they're very unique. But although they're a felid, believe it or not, cheetahs have a lot of common features with the Canidae family. But they are a felid, but their skeleton is actually quite similar to a dog, and their scapula, which is a shoulder blade, is very similar sort of built to a grey wolf. The grey wolf is also part of the Canidae family. We're just going to move a little bit. So the scapula in a leopard is massive, and you can see their big shoulder blades because they hoist, they climb trees. But in cheetahs, it's actually built more like a grey wolf, believe it or not. Okay. Just going to get into a better position. Cheetah is alone, I believe. We have got a mother with cubs in the area, but I believe this female right here is alone. She's been quite nervous. She's a large female. But yes, she appears to be completely alone. And believe it or not, the milk of a cheetah is said to be very similar. I think it's like above 95% actually, similar to a wild dog. Rather than a cat, rather than any member of a Felidae family. That's the milk, the lactation milk. It's very, very similar to the dog in terms of composition. Each mammal's milk is very, very different in composition of the protein, the fatty acids, calcium. So she's similar in more than one ways to the Canidae family. And as you know, they're primarily diurnal. That's why we're seeing her right now sniffing on the ground. I'm not sure what she's smelling. So when that sun sets, she will start to quieten down. She'll start to hide and sleep to avoid meeting the other predators. And she has really, really good depth perception. That's how she can run so fast and hunt. So she's got amazing binocular, long-distance vision. And a cheetah's retina, believe it or not, actually has more cones, and that's your really special photoreceptor cells responsible for day colour and colour perception. So they've got a lot more cones and fewer rods. Rods are responsible for night vision and your peripheral vision. So she's got fantastic day vision, fantastic colour vision, and she's very binocular. She's not good in her periphery. And she's got the best, the sort of most cones, than any other cat. Craig, oh, I'm sure you've heard this many, many times, but they can run up to speeds of 112 kilometers per hour. They can run incredibly fast, but I think that's the sort of fastest that's ever been recorded. So it's anywhere in the region of 100 to 120 kilometers per hour. And the acceleration power, believe it or not, for cheetahs is actually said to be 4 times higher than that achieved by Usain Bolt during his world record. And it's said to be double that of racing greyhounds. I think we need to reposition. I can't believe that we've been searching Buffelshoek all day. We've not been lucky. It's been one of these bumbles, not particularly lucky. And here, you never know what's going to happen. Very close to the Mangalaty border, right at the top of Buffelshoek. You can see she's really nervous, always checking behind her. Lions would attack her, and a leopard would probably chase hers. Also, excuse the car. We try to avoid showing cars as much as possible out here, but it's not always possible. Human physiology is not adapted for high speeds. The cheetahs are. They have so many unique specializations that are just so fascinating that allows them to reach these speeds. No other animal, or should I say mammal, has these specializations, not even the horse. Their entire anatomy has evolved and become specialized for speed. When I talk about the predator pizza, that's their slice of pizza, speed. Long legs, very flexible spine, thin waist, supermodel style. I'm a little bit jealous. Semi-retractable claws, so that can give them traction. If they were like a leopard and the claws were inside, they wouldn't be able to gain as much traction when they're running extremely fast. That tail is really long and bulbous at the end. It's far more bulbous and round at the end than that of a leopard. That acts as a rudder, so it counterbalances the animal when they're changing direction slightly when they're running. Imagine running at that speed and then having to all of a sudden change direction. You've got a very small head. I'm going to reposition. Very, very small head and light bones. Their bones are so light because they can't afford to be weighed down. The bones are less dense than the Panthera genus. Okay, there's other vehicles moving in the area as well, so I'm just driving carefully. Many of you will remember Busara from the Masai Mara. I don't know if she's been seen. We'll need to ask Isaac. Theo, can you work with this? But Busara was a beautiful female cheetah that took up residence in our camp, and we were able to follow her in the Masai Mara for a long time. What an afternoon this has turned into be, so we will try to keep up with our female cheetah for as long as possible.
All right, guys, so not a lot of activity just yet. I do think they're just waiting to see if something comes through. Both mom and the son still lying in the same shady spot. The female cub is a little bit further away on the right-hand side. I don't know if we'll be able to see her now, but regardless, okay, well, that helps. I think he might actually just be moving towards his sister now. But with this wind pushing in so strongly, it's going to be great to be able for them to hunt into the wind from over here. And as you can see, it's quite open. So with that being the case, it would be great if we have some springbok or some impala or something like that, or even, young oryx or something something's the right size for them to take down, to come through this open area, and then, they can devise a plan to try and get it down. That would be epic if we were able to see that. So hopefully soon. You can see Mom's also sitting up now. I do think that with the sun getting mobile, they might have decided, nothing's coming into the water just yet, let's continue searching, which will be great because, seeing them move and seeing how they operate, looking for these animals or prey animals, is always awesome. So we just had a question from Pierre. What is the difference between a male and a female cheetah? Okay, so there's a couple of behavioral differences. You'll find that the males do tend to stick in coalitions. So unfortunately for this guy, because he's the only male in this litter still left, he will, when his mother kicks him out, he is going to operate by himself unless he can find another male friend, which is not related to him necessarily, who will then stick with him. And that will enhance their chances of not only hunting but taking over territories and, being dominant in that territory for longer. However, visually, if you look at a cheetah, male and female are not very different from one another. They look very alike. Obviously, guys, there's the toolbox that you can look at, so that's a big difference. But then also, a male cheetah will be slightly larger than a female. Not by much, though. A male cheetah, big male cheetah, will go up to about 45-50 kilos, whereas a female, I feel like, is going to be around maybe 35 to 40, the big females, 40 kilos. So about 10 kilogram difference between male and female. However, spots and, when you look at a cheetah walking over there in the distance, to see whether it's male or female will be very hard to tell unless you look at the obvious things. However, behaviorally, they have larger territories. They do tend to stick in coalitions. The largest coalition that I've heard of or seen was 8 males sticking together, whereas the females, you'll always find them by themselves, unless they've got cubs like they do now, or if they're mating, or if there's, special circumstances. However, they don't go and find another female to stick with and then continue going from there. They'll prefer being solitary. So with that being the case, that is one of the main differences. So typically if you see adult cheetahs all together, you're very certain that it is males, unless it is, of course, some of these female cheetahs, they do tend to keep their cubs quite long with them. The longest I've heard was about 3 years of a female keeping her cubs with her before she gave birth again and pushed them out and then gave birth again. So sometimes you'll drive around and actually find like 4 or 5 cheetahs together, and it's not necessarily that it is only males and it's a coalition that was formed. So with that being the case, be very careful of just saying that, when there is male, or when there's a couple of cheetahs sticking together, or together, that it is only males. It could just be adult, rather large cubs with their female. But typically speaking, if you do see adult, all the same size cheetahs sticking together, you can be relatively certain that it is males that formed a coalition. So not a big difference as far as the differences between male and female. There's a size difference, there's that obvious difference of them being male and then female, but that is about it. Visually, they don't look very dissimilar. Yeah, I think we'll reposition a bit, see if here's a jackal. But yeah, we'll see if he wants to go closer. If that is the case, guys, we'll let you know, see if he doesn't want to bug them a little bit. But for the meantime, we are actually going to send you off somewhere else while we reposition the vehicle.
As Mo is positioning for the cheetah, I'm driving back to where I last saw the lions, but it seems like we're losing light. It's that time of the day when the nocturnals will start roaming the night. There's a place where we always see white-tailed mongoose, so I'm actually headed there to see if I can get a glimpse of them before it gets dark. There's a pair there with the 2 young ones, and very, very playful when it comes to this time of the day. So I'm hoping to find them and see what activity they're going to do now. There's a hyena den on our way back to camp, but of late, I think because of the rain, they've not been so active. We've not seen them quite much. So it will be nice to see them also.
She's posing so perfectly for us. And look, you can see those semi-retractable claws, you see? They're out. They're not fully out like hyenas or your domestic dogs, but they're semi-out. She can... Oh, thank you for showing us, darling. She can retract them a little bit into sheaths. So it's different from leopards, lions, and completely different from the likes of hyenas. Now, going back to their specializations. If you've ever watched a cheetah run, but watch it in slow-mo, go back and make it slow-mo, you'll actually see that it's an incredible sort of feats of movement. The legs, the back, the muscles, the tail, but if you look at the head, it's hardly moving. Everything else is moving, everything is working with such coordination, but the head is not. And basically, in vertebrates, those animals that have a spine, your balance comes from 3 really special canals that contain fluid and sensory hair cells in your head. So sometimes when you have balance issues, it can be because of problems with your inner ear. And that's sort of across the board for all vertebrates, and these canals, these 3 canals, are positioned at different angles, and it's very, very sensitive to movement. Now, the inner ears of cheetahs are markedly different from all other felids alive today. They're the only cat that has this sort of unique ear. You can Google it. I can't show you a picture, I'm afraid, but if you Google it, you'll see that the system is completely different. These canals are much longer and slightly different shape to give a greater overall volume, because these canals have fluid inside of them. So they're much larger and longer, and that allows for more fluid, and basically this sort of change in anatomy, if you like, gives them enhanced sensitivity and a much faster, rapid response to head motions. So she keeps her head still as much as possible, but if it is moving at those speeds, at least those channels in her inner ear can account for that balance. And that's why she's able to maintain visual stability and hunt successfully, moving at phenomenal speeds. And it's only recently that this sort of inner ear anatomy has been discovered. But Google it, you'll understand what I see when you see the picture. So they keep their gaze locked on the prey, that intense gaze. Their entire body's moving, but their head is not moving at all. And it's said to be a recent sort of evolution of the cat, a recent specialization, because there's a species that's now extinct. It was in the Axonoints genus. And, sorry, that's another vehicle. And they do not have this specialization, so it's said to be quite recent. It's a highly specialized inner ear of the modern day cheetah. So if you think about it, there has to be specializations. There's no way an animal can run that fast and not have a physiological or biological specialization that allows them to excel at those speeds. Oh, they're just fantastic animals. It's so good to see when I miss seeing them. I used to see them often in the Mara. Thank you. Okay. We're going to try and stay about 15 more minutes with her, if she obliges, and we'll turn around and get a better view.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to andBeyond in Ngala. We've had a very peaceful afternoon driving along the riverbed, and we actually came upon this small bachelor herd of Kudu. So there's actually about 5 male Kudu here. We can only see 2 at the moment, but they are absolutely gorgeous. You can see those beautiful white stripes on their backs. And actually this one closest to us has an incredibly long beard running down his neck. Almost like a bit of a mane. And they are in such good condition. We had beautiful early rains this year, which means that there are a lot of leaves and grasses out. And although it looks like these 2 are actually feeding off of the grass, there's actually small shrubs that are growing there. So they're actually eating the leaves of the small shrubs that are growing out in the grass line. But this has always been one of my favorite animals because I think they're incredibly graceful. The way that they walk always looks elegant and almost regal, like they know that they might be royalty. They're actually not far off. They're the 2nd tallest antelope in southern Africa. And one thing that's always fascinated me is that corkscrew shape of their horns. And for each full curl, it's actually around 2 years of his life. So these are all, every single one that we've seen here has been at least 5 or 6 years old, I'd say. But it's just one of those animals that when you're with it, you're just so grateful for the time that you spend with them. Because they almost look gentle and elegant. But look at how well he camouflages in behind that shrub. Those white stripes are absolutely stunning. So actually it's incredible to see that they are in such good condition. A lot of the time if Kudu aren't in good condition, their coats are a little dull. But even then, their stripes as well start to fade. And these are really nice white, clear stripes. And you can see how muscular their bodies are. So they are doing very well this season. See, it's got some oxpeckers on its back. So they're busy helping get rid of all of those ticks. And I think they're really enjoying this cool evening starting to set in because it was incredibly hot here today. So this is an absolutely incredible time of day to be out. You can see he's shaking his tail a lot as well, trying to get the flies off of him. So we're actually going to stay here with them for a little while longer, see if we can get another view, and then we'll carry on down the riverbed a little later.
You're back with Craig and I at andBeyond Phinda, and it's been a little while. Craig and I have been trying to find where this mother cheetah and her 2 cubs have gone, and we've been left scratching our heads, everybody. We cannot find a single track in the area of where I saw her earlier this morning. She's just disappeared. Now, she was looking quite skinny when we last saw her this morning, so probably gone off hunting and hopefully has caught something and is maybe hunkered down, busy eating, which is why it's been so tough to find any sign of her. But it sounds like you've been having some awesome cheetah sightings with Morris over at Tswalu and, of course, with Lauren as well at Djuma, so I'm not too disappointed. But anyway, Craig and I have continued on with our afternoon, and we've come to this beautiful waterhole. And is this not just the most breathtaking scene? It's so peaceful. The lovely golden light reflecting off of the water. On the other side of the waterhole, can you see those big dark shapes that are slowly starting to move along? The hippos that have been resting in the depths of the water hole for the day, starting to make their way towards the bank. As the sun starts to set, it'll be their time to leave the water. Now that the intense rays of the sun are not as much of a threat to them and their sensitive skin, it's much cooler. It'll be their time to leave the water and go out onto the green pastures in search of food. Lovely fresh green grass, of course, what they'll be after. There's a couple of youngsters that I can see there in the distance, kind of yawning and displaying to each other, inviting play from each other and trying to invite play from their parents. It's a big crocodile. Alita, you're asking if there's any evolutionary reason that hippos are so aggressive. Alita, aggression among animals is typically just a means for them to defend their territory. And it's normally territorial animals that tend to be very aggressive towards each other. So, for example, hippos, they have obviously got their patch of water, and they need to defend their patch of water against other, well, in the case of the bulls, they want to defend their patch of water from other bulls, because if other hippos come in there, they could crowd them out, and there could be competition for space in that precious water that they need so much. They'll also want to keep those other bulls away from their grazing resources, because if a bull, for example, this dominant bull in this area, having a look around, he's got a lot of lush green grass that's growing all pretty close to his waterhole, to his territory. And if it's only him and his females and offspring that are exploiting that grass, then it'll mean that they can use this grass very close, or feed on this grass very close to the water for a long time, and therefore use less energy in terms of going off and looking for food. If he allowed every other hippo to come in here, this resource would get used up very quickly, and they would then have to start moving further and further away from this waterhole in search of enough grass to eat, which would be detrimental to their health and to their chances of survival. So typically aggression is common among territorial animals. About lions and leopards and how aggressive they can be towards each other. Lions against other lions, leopards against other leopards. And I suppose even predators with other predators, they're normally pretty aggressive in terms of their interactions with each other, because they will be competing for the same food resource. Now, just as the sun starts to descend towards the mountain off in the distance, I think Craig and I are going to keep on moving through these clearings and these woodlands below us, and it'll be quite nice if we can try and find maybe a white rhino for all of you before the sun goes down. That's going to be our plan.
Alright guys, so you can see they're sitting up just a bit. Well, one is. Still scanning the foot of the mountain. So with them coming right the previous time with that impala about 2-3 weeks ago, it's now gotten stuck in their head that there's always a good opportunity to do so when they when they do see, well, when they are in the area. However, like I said, we were scanning that area as well, and we didn't see anything so far. So I do think that their best chance will still be just to, wait it out and see if there's not something coming through from the north. It is a very good spot for them to be in, because everything most of the animals will have to, or will want to, come and have a drink before they start feeding a little later on. So it's a very good spot for them to set up a trap. So hopefully soon we'll get lucky and one of them will come through. However, for the time being, looking relatively static. It's amazing to see how, sometimes you want something to happen a little faster than what it is happening, but they just have the patience. They'll do whatever they want, whenever they want to. If they want to move, it's going to be on their clock. We just had a question from Harriet. How strong is the jaw of a cheetah? It's not nearly as strong as something like a hyena or a leopard or a lion, with them being slightly smaller, also not having as much muscle around the neck area, helping them to clamp down or to crunch with those jaws. So they won't be able to break bones and do those things like that a hyena would be able to do. However, it is strong enough to grab a hold of the throat of an antelope species and clamp down sufficiently enough to be able to strangle it or cut off the blood supply to the head or the brain, more specifically. So quite strong. As you can imagine, they'll have to, it still needs to be rather strong to be able to cut through the skin of some of these animals. Something like an oryx or so have a rather thick skin. So that slicing motion of the carnassial shear, or those canine, those knife-like teeth at the back of their jaw or their mouth, still needs to have sufficient power to be able to cut through the skin and to be able to clamp down on an animal's throat and be able to strangle it sufficiently enough for the animal to be immobilized before they start feeding. So not a very powerful bite. However, if they do bite you, you are going to know about it. It will definitely, for us as humans, break the skin and hurt you pretty badly. But definitely not as strong as something like a hyena or a lion or something like that. They don't need to have such strong bites just because they don't hunt as big animals as like the lions or so. So not necessary to have a strong bite like a lion. They rely more on speed and those types of things to be able to take down their prey. Power is a rumor for them. So yeah, guys, we'll let you know if they get a little bit more active. I see the two on our flat. It's just the one that's still scanning. But as soon as they spot something, we'll let you know, okay?
Sunset competition time. I think we've got a winner here. We were sitting at Ndlovu Dam, just enjoying, waiting for some animals to turn up, and we just realized that there was this incredible orange glow in the sky, and we gazed to our west, and we realized that there was this gorgeous orange orb in the sky, as you can see, framed beautifully by BK, by this knobthorn tree's outstretched boughs, as it slowly and inevitably makes its way towards the horizon. Something so spectacular about watching a sunset. It's like the culmination of an amazing day's game viewing, and just being in Africa and just being able to witness this wildlife. It's just the perfect way to end, is with this kind of a sunset. And there's only one place in the world where you get that same feeling, for me anyway, and that's on the continent of Africa. So let's see, what has everyone got? Can they provide something to match this spectacular sunset? Just gonna watch and see how long it takes. I always had this way of measuring the sun where you'd say, like, when you outstretch your hand for every finger length or finger space, like if you stretched all your fingers out, you'd be able to tell like how far it was until, or how long. It's supposed to be about 15 minutes per finger space. So in about 15 minutes, the sun should be setting.
The sun is setting, Mike, which is why this will be our last visuals of our cheetah, at least primarily diurnal. I don't want to stay with this animal once the sun gets too low. I think we've been lucky enough. And I had a brain freeze earlier. That's happening a lot. I think I'm going to blame the sun. Oh. Oh. We have a standoff. Nicely done, Theo. Wow. They've spotted her. She's, of course, spotted them. Oof. I hope they're not confusing her for a leopard, because they will not anticipate her speed, that's for sure. This is tense. I'm going to go forward. See how she's running. Not at top speed, of course. But she's off, just like that. What a sight time.
Too late. Welcome back to andBeyond, Phinda. That didn't take long at all. Craig and I just came down from that little rise where we were overlooking the waterhole, and we found 2 white rhinos busy grazing through this open clearing. I know for now it's not the best view. There's a small guarri bush that's obscuring our view. But have a look at the 2 of them there. See the one on the right, slightly smaller than the one on the left, so a mother and her almost independent calf. Just having a look through my binoculars. Look at how dark the lower halves of their bodies are from where they've been lying in mud during the day trying to cool off. They obviously missed the spot. Maybe not quite hot enough today to have to roll all the way over. Although it was pretty warm today. So they must have found maybe a shady mud wallow to lie in. They didn't feel it necessary to roll all the way over onto their backs to coat their backs with mud too. From here it looks like a young male, the little calf. Well, the not so little calf. A young male. And it will be interesting to see, like I said, almost independent. Looking at his size, he looks like he's probably about, well, his size compared to mum, probably about 2.5, somewhere around there, 2.5 years old. And this is the time when white rhinos will normally be pushed away by their mothers. There's a very good chance that she is pregnant already with her next calf. And of course, when she's almost ready to give birth, she'll want to make sure that she's got her full attention given to her new little one. And so she'll want this other older calf as soon as it is gone. There's a couple of birds flitting around there. I saw a Cape starling just now. Also looked like there were 1 or 2 oxpeckers flying around there. The starling, I think now on the ground, although the grass is a bit long to see it. No doubt following the rhinos around. Look at how long and thick that grass is, and just imagine how, as those rhinos walk through the grass, how they'll flush up little insects, little grasshoppers and stuff, crickets. That starling will be able to then swoop down and feed on. Super opportunistic little birds. Quite a few different species of birds that will do that. Just thinking now, I saw a picture earlier today of a flock of wattled starlings that were doing the same thing as what this Cape starling is doing with these rhinos. So quite a couple of different bird species that will follow these rhinos around. Although for now, all I can see was that Cape starling. What is that calf doing? Look at how it's... I think it's found, just watching through my binoculars, I think it's found a particularly long patch of grass, and it's feeding on only the upper halves. Well, it looks like it's feeding on only the upper halves of the grass from here. Yeah, using those big fleshy lips of his to gather up the grass. John, you're asking how much a white rhino would weigh on average at birth. John, it's normally kind of upwards of about 50 kilograms, so about 50, 60 kilograms. Sometimes maybe a little bit less. It will, I suppose, depend on the genetics of the rhino, but that's normally the ballpark figure. So, obviously, yeah, quite small and helpless. And to think that that little creature grows into this enormous animal in front of us. I mean, that female on the right could weigh close to 2,000 kilograms. And I suppose, John, it also helps us to understand why, or it makes sense then why she would want to not have this other older calf with her at that time. Because if he's a little bit clumsy and he's trying to come and smell the little one, he might accidentally hurt it. And that little one could then get injured, could get stood on or trampled if the one rhino gets a fright. I can't see Mom all that clearly though, but from here, it does look like she is especially large, especially rounded. Now with rhinos, because of the way they digest their food, they always look a little bit bloated, always look a little bit round. But normally a pregnant rhino cow, it's pretty noticeable when she's about to give birth. But I think I've seen a little gap that we might be able to move into to get you a slightly better view. So hopefully when you come back to us, Craig and I will have a slightly clearer view of these rhinos for you.
Okay guys, so a little bit of interest being shown by this jackal into the cheetah. Look at that. Oh, this is cool. Wow, that's very cool, guys. So often you'll find, let's just see if I can see. I think it might have given up, eh? I don't see the cheetah coming through. Playing a little bit. Yeah, I see the cheetah coming through here again. But that was very cool. You know, often the cheetahs will do that where they chase the jackals away because the jackals just constantly nag them. And irritate them, you know, when they're moving and when they're hunting, they can quite often be the reason why a cheetah does not succeed in a kill or in a stalk, because they will walk behind them and just constantly mob them, making these screaming sounds, which then alerts the animals of a predator being in the area. So then everyone is on high alert already. So with that being the case, whenever they do, you know, venture too close, you'll find the cheetahs doing this. We just had a question from Yogi. Do cheetahs hunt in a group? Yes, they do. It will be, as far as the males are concerned, when they form those coalitions like we spoke about earlier, the males will hunt as a group, not necessarily like lions, but they will work as a team to take down prey, which would be normally then quite larger than what they would do if they were all by themselves. So yes, absolutely they will. However, in this particular situation where it's the mom with the two cubs, she's still hunting relatively by herself. The cubs are not quite big enough yet to make a big impact in the hunting activities. So she's doing the solo act for now, and most of the time you will find females doing so by themselves. It's only when the cubs are relatively, quite a bit older, let's say around 2 years of age, when you'll actually find them starting to help the mother in the hunting activities. At the moment, with them being only about 18 months old and not physically quite there yet, also as far as their skills is concerned, not perfect, they almost mess up more hunts than anything else. But yes, to answer your question, they will absolutely hunt as a team if they have more than one individual in the area or in the group. But it's not a common thing to see with a female. You'll see that more with the males when they form those coalitions. So he's just now is a territorial marking spot of a blue wildebeest over there, guys. So what that cheetah was doing is just getting all the chemical messages that was left behind over there. You know, they quite often will go and do that. Just when they walk past a midden or so, it doesn't necessarily have to be a lion or a cheetah or a sow midden. Well, not that they form middens, but predator-wise, hyena midden or so. Just blue wildebeest or something like that. You'll find them stopping and just getting a quick update on what's going on in the chemical messaging world before moving on. Still scanning the foothill of the mountain, you can see there, and those ears are, the way he's looking right now, it seems like he's almost spotting something, but maybe not something important. That was a good dash of excitement when he was chasing that jackal now. Sometimes when you get them getting really close to the jackals, they run quite fast. We just had a question from Fiona. Why do cheetahs purr? It's just cheetahs purr just because of this exact same reason as cats. You know, it's a sign of affection. So when they are cuddling with each other or so, they will go into that, they will start purring just because they then show one another that it is, that they're enjoying themselves or something like that. You know, it's like I said, a sign of affection. They can't, like us, say when they're enjoying something, they have to communicate it with purring or, visual communication rather than vocal communication most of the time. But purring, just like a house cat, a domestic cat, they use that to show affection. So yeah, guys, we'll see what's happening here. If these boys or these cheetahs get a little bit more active, or if they spot something, we'll come straight back here. But for the meantime, we're just going to stick with them and see what happens, okay?
So other animals that make sounds to communicate are these little dwarf mongoose. Very, very vocal little creatures that make different types of sounds depending on the predator that's around. Right now, I noticed them first because they were making little noises. I think it's getting late now, so this one in the middle looks much larger than the other two. I think it might be one of the adults that is now calling the rest of the band of mongoose that might be foraging around this area to bring them back home. Oh, this is an old, I don't know what this is. It looks like a drain that was here before. This was farmland before. It's been rehabilitated slowly back into wilderness, but the drain, or whatever it was, has obviously some space underneath it, and the mongoose are now using it. There's a fourth one. Hey, look at that. Sometimes these mongoose bands can be 20 or more in a family group. Here's one scurrying past. It's going to come and join the rest. straight inside. And there's one always keeping sentry duty, just making sure that no stragglers are left behind, that no predator is coming. And there it disappears in. Oh no, there's more. So I don't think that's all of them. There must be more still coming. If they were all inside, I think they would probably all be disappeared by now. But the fact they keep looking out makes me think there might still be a couple more that are on their way. This is great that I found this though. BK, I reckon they're going to be here all the time. This looks like a pretty established den site. So it maybe can start to spend a bit of time with these mongoose and see what they get up to and what they do. It's always nice to spend time with these little animals. I know they can become incredibly habituated to people and vehicles. I'm sure if we came and sat here every day for a month, eventually they would start to ignore us, and that would be really exciting. And maybe we could even count just how many are in this band. At least 5. Very cute. And sometimes, so look at the one on the right's got a pink nose, and the one on the left has a dark nose. But it looks smaller. I wonder if they only develop a pink nose later. That's so odd. That would be the opposite to what I'd expect. You know, with most large predators, the pink nose is usually younger individuals. I wonder. Interesting. And it looks like they're actually emerging out a little bit more. You know, it's been a hot day, so now maybe that it's cooling down a bit, the mongoose are coming out to enjoy the cooler weather. Few hornbills also flying around, which are often going to be associating with the mongoose in the early morning, because the mongoose will disturb some insects that the hornbills will enjoy. Bit of an airplane flying over. Look at the mongoose. There's a small little airplane that's just flown over. You know, one of the bush aircraft that takes people from place to place, and the mongoose got a bit of a fright. But it doesn't take them long to recover again. See, they're back out. Incredibly brave animals. I've seen mongoose chasing animals 10 times their size away from their dens. Incredibly tenacious.
Welcome back to andBeyond Phinda. Craig and I have just slightly adjusted our viewing position of these rhinos. Much better view of this mother and her youngster. See how they're standing very still. Well, at least Mom is. Look at the little one, how he's... From here, I don't know if you can make out just to the left of where he's standing. There's a couple of dark spots on the ground there. It almost looks like some white rhino dung. And it may be that that's where other white rhinos, maybe even the dominant bull in this area, maybe where he's got a midden and where he's come to defecate. And so that youngster smelling that dung very intently, wanting to find out more about the other rhinos in this area. There's a very gentle breeze blowing from the left-hand side of your screen across. I don't know if you can see the grass blades moving, maybe even the bushes moving. And see how the rhinos are standing broadside onto that. Now, I mentioned that today has obviously been quite a hot day, and obviously with the rhinos having rolled in mud, more evidence of the fact that it was a very, very, very warm day. And so now with those big animals that's built up in their body, just standing broadside onto that cool breeze to help them to lower their body temperatures a little bit, cool down a little bit. No doubt must be a massive relief to them after the scorching sun that they've been subjected to today. What is that little rhino doing? Do you see how he almost looked underneath his mom's belly there? Oh, he wants to lie down. With his butt facing into the wind. And so perhaps they lay in some thickets earlier today, but they've come out into the open to rest for a bit. Your guess, you're asking how rhinos sharpen their horns. Yogesh, they'll often go up to termite mounds or tree stumps or any kind of solid big object, and they'll rub their heads up and down in a kind of like a rocking motion. They'll nod their heads up and down while rubbing the horn against the object. And sometimes we can even see the signs of it, if you will, especially on termite mounds, where obviously that horn rubbing against the clay and the structure of the termite mound, you can see the grooves that get cut into the mound. Very interesting sight to see. Also sandbanks or mud banks, all popular places for rhinos to go and sharpen their horns on. So I was saying, perhaps with the hot day, these rhinos went and lay they definitely lay in the mud wallow, but then maybe went to go lie in some shade nearby. Look at the clumps of trees that kind of are scattered all over this clearing. And now it's, for them, nice to be able to come and lie out in the open, take in the cooling breeze. And I'm sure once they are sufficiently cooled off, if you will, they'll start to feed. Having a look through my binoculars, there's still a bit of dead grass that's growing or that's standing here, but lots of short green grass. That's just for these rhinos, and then with their big square wide mouths, they'll be able to feed on it and satisfy their energy requirements for the day. But how awesome was that? I think Craig and I are going to leave these rhinos to continue with their rest, and we're going to start slowly making our way in the direction of home.
Just a quick update from my side as I drive the highway. We're heading home. My dinner is calling. It's not warthog though. No, it's most likely vegetables. No, in all seriousness, I wanted to leave that cheetah. We're losing light here. Sun's getting lower and lower, and I just want to let that cheetah be. Fantastic sighting. She was not successful with the warthogs, but she was very interested. And James Richard, thank you once again. We know this cheetah. We've seen her before. I personally haven't, but the team here at Djuma have, and she used to be seen very often with her brother. Now, I don't know if she has a name. I would love to know that, but she was definitely alone from what we can see tonight. So that is just a fantastic sighting, and I had a brain freeze earlier, but luckily everything's back to its original state, and the extinct species of cheetah that I could not remember the Latin name is Acinonyx, which is the genus name, and then the species name is Pardinenthus. So it's Acinonyx pardinenthus, and that's the extinct species of cheetah that's no longer with us, and it did not have that specialized, highly evolved ear. It's only the modern day cheetah that we see today that have that ear. So somewhere between the extinct species and today's species, there has been sort of rapid evolution in the ear, which maybe means that they were able to run faster. Who knows? So I couldn't remember that Latin name earlier. Naughty Lauren, but I got it now. I looked it up. So what a fantastic day. Quiet start, but it's always worth it in the end. I didn't make it to the hyena den, sadly. I'm also annoyed at myself for that, and I'm not going to make it there in time. But you can be rest assured I will be there first thing in the morning. So we're going to bumble off home, back into Djuma.
Okay guys, so unfortunately it doesn't seem like there's any game coming into the area where the cheetahs are at the moment, so they might have to wait a little bit longer. As you can see, still scanning, constantly on the lookout for anything to come through. It is cooling down nicely now, clouds are busy moving in, so I do feel like there's going to be some activity soon, not necessarily from the cheetahs, but from game coming in towards the waterhole or something like that. So hopefully they'll be able to hunt this afternoon. However, I don't think we'll be able to see that. Still quite a bit of scanning towards the mountainside, which is weird. I mean, you'd think by now they would have thought or would have figured out There's nothing over there, but I mean, then again, you can't always say that it's the case if there wasn't something earlier, that there will continue to be like that. At some point they have to move through. But yeah, what a beautiful afternoon spent with these guys. There's a bit of a storm by the looks of it coming through. Craig just had a question. What is the tip on a cheetah's tail for? Craig, that big heavy tail is like a balancing beam, which he uses to when he's running at those great speeds, to help him to not topple over if they have to turn quickly and so on. So it's just like a balance beam that they use. So the the very tip of the tail is normally quite thick, quite heavy, which they then use to throw in different directions, most of the time opposite direction of where they're turning to be able to not lose their footing and start, fall and roll over or so when they're running at 100 kilometers an hour. Also, the actual tip of the tail will be used as what we call a follow me sign. So especially when the cubs are still little, the mom will lift the tail a little higher, and then while she's walking, they will, even if she does go through long grass, they will be able to see where the tip of the tail is going and be able to follow their mother like that. So quite a lot of animals make use of these follow me signs. It's not always on the tail. Some of the animals have slightly lighter colored bums, or like a waterbuck has a ring on the backside. But most of the predators, something like a lion's got the black tip, the leopard's got a white piece of fluff underneath the tip of the tail. Cheetahs, likewise, that black tip on the tail. And that is all just a follow me sign for them, to be able to see where each other is going. Also, when there's a coalition of males, cheetahs now hunting together, when they start running at those great speeds, they need something to be able to look at to see where each other is going. So typically they'll also use the tail to keep track of where the mate is going. However, I'd say the main thing of having that thick, heavy tail on a cheetah is the balance that they need. We just had a question from Angie. What is the ratio of predators to prey at Tswalu? Angie, I would say the ratio, well, let's talk about the balance. It's difficult to really give you a ratio as far as numbers is concerned, because we are, even though we know the cheetah population is healthy, we're not quite sure how many there is exactly, because there's, in the far southwest, there's cheetahs. There are some of them so skittish, if they just hear a vehicle, they move away. So some of them might be operating in the reserve without us even knowing how many there are. So the balance between the animals are quite healthy. So it's not like we have too many predators for the amount of prey species that we have. Also, the diversity of prey species for each predator is also quite healthy. So like for the cheetahs, they don't only have to go for springbok, they can go for steenbok, they can go for duiker, they can go for young oryx, red hartebeest, all of those types of things, kudus. So there's quite a couple of different prey species for each predator. When we look at the hyenas, they're probably one of them, and the lions are the two apex predators that we have around here. So they go for the eland and the adult oryx and those types of things. So there's always enough different prey species, and also enough as far as numbers is concerned to keep the balance going. But yeah, guys, unfortunately it has come to that time of the afternoon where we are going to have to say see you tomorrow morning. It was lovely having you join us on the live drive here at Tswalu and all the different other locations. Please remember to tune in tomorrow morning for the morning drive on channel 183 on DSTV, or you can follow us on YouTube or Twitter. And please remember to send us all of your questions using the hashtag WildEarth thingy on YouTube, and then we'll definitely see you tomorrow morning again. All right, guys, have a wonderful evening. Ciao, ciao.